stream, Eric.
How did you end my stream?
I have no idea. How do I have the rights to end your stream?
I have no idea. Somebody somewhere, God said, "Let there be a major f up," and let it be Joe. So
it's Rob's fault. I'm certain of it. Somehow or another, it's Rob's fault.
I'm usually the one with the tech problem.
Yeah, I was going to say Tim rolled a one.
That's true.
So, are we back live? Are we good?
I think we're live. I think we're live.
We are live.
So is this 4 members of the B team? Was Joe B team as well?
Yeah,
I was.
Is this a B team reunion?
I was an A and B team guy.
I don't think Rob was in the B team, but yeah.
No, Rob wasn't around.
It would be me, Doug, you, and then I guess we have Peter.
Yeah, Peter.
And then I don't know if Joe was. He was the one who stirred shit in front of us. I think he was part of the A team.
What did I do? I was the A team plus the B team. I had nothing to do. I had no life. You know, I was all the teams, man.
Thought he was late. You're not late. You're not late. Starts messing with the technology again.
Well, well, let's see. I'm going to try to simulcast this. Let's see if it works. I thought I simulcasted it before, and everything was fine.
There we go again.
So I think I'm simulcasting right now.
Whatever you're doing, don't do it. Don't do anything else.
Don't cross the streams, man.
All right, don't cross the streams. Exactly.
Oh my gosh! Yes,
Jesus
that was a natural
Christ.
one.
That was that.
No, Joe. I can't say what Joe was using. All right, I know I am not using Millennium Edition Windows. All right,
Millennium Edition.
Oh my God!
What Joe is using has nothing to do with computers.
No, it's on a different tab entirely, and you're good. Yeah. Oh, that stuff. Yeah, that stuff. Yeah. True.
We can't blame this on Joe taking a shit.
Yeah.
All right.
It wasn't even that either. I would gladly announce if I was taking a shit, as I always do. I don't know what the hell happened here.
Proud of him.
Dude, I thought your go-to phrase was taking a dump, not a shit.
Taking a dump. Well, I want to class it up here for this one, Rob.
Yeah, I will say this. I know we have loyal viewers who decided not to say, "Hey, fuck it, I'm gonna go out to the bar or put my head down and go to sleep." Because we're back at 17 people watching live, which is exactly what we had.
Thank you, everybody.
Joe killed the stream.
I'm down to one viewer on my simulcast, so you guys are doing 17 times better than me.
Well, on the simulcast, your viewers are like, "Oh, Joe's done. That was a great show."
Joe's a one-pump show. He got in and out real fast.
This is going to be one for the books. And yes, Tammy, thank you. We are loyalists. We do appreciate it. See, normally we'd be blaming Matt Jackson for whatever the fuck happened.
We can still blame Matt. There's nothing stopping us from ever blaming Matt.
Nothing stopping.
Absolutely.
I mean, what are buses for but to throw people under?
Actually, in Matt's case, it's ladders.
It's ladders, yeah.
And Matt's
hold on one sec. My children are yelling at me.
Oh yeah. and Matt's on the short bus anyway, so
That's true. So.
He makes the special hockey helmet.
I texted him earlier, our little group there. When are you ever gonna fucking join again, man? It's it really isn't. It's not as.
He's sent a 90-word essay on why he can't.
Seriously, what a fucking bitch! Is he whining again? I didn't even see the response. I was taking a shit. What did it say?
I don't know. It's Matt. This is the most he writes anyway.
Oh God, here we go.
All right.
He's talking about all kinds of work nonsense, blah, 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 blah. I can't because of work, blah. His motherfucker's retired. He's like 78 years old. He spent 55 years in the fucking military, and he's got a second job. Dude, fucking retire for fuck's sake. What the hell are you doing, I don't, blah, 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 blah. Answers, bullshit. Yeah, that's a Matt Jackson response. He's not even fucking joining. What a bitch. Anyway, hi, Matt.
Joe's coming in hot.
I stopped at a bar. I stopped at a bar ahead of time. It was Friday, goddammit. Anyway, hi, Doug.
Hi.
Hello, everybody. And we're going to stay on for longer than 2 minutes this time, all right?
We'll promise. We're not one pump shumping this shit tonight, damn it.
All right, Doug. What did you bring for us tonight?
Rob's like, oh,
Yeah,
completely.
All right,
uncomfortable.
just was it's all on me, huh? No, so anyway, thanks for having me on. It's been a while since we chatted. I think the last time we talked, I was in the middle of the first Isle of Cedric campaign, and that has since come and gone. And I decided to fire up a new one for Old School Essentials, because I find that. And this really gets down to, excuse me, this really gets down to a lesson that I learned with my very first Kickstarter many years ago, Dungeon Grappling, which was nobody wants to pay for the same word, an extra word that they don't have to. And I get that, and I'm not arguing about it, but what I did for Dungeon Grappling is I said, hey, here's one concept, and I'm going to do it for 5th edition, Swords and Wizardry, and Pathfinder. And I won't say people were mad, but they were frustrated that if they were a Pathfinder player, they had to buy this 5e shit. Or if they were, playing the one true system of 5th edition or whatever, that why is it, why do I have to bother with the other things? And so while some people were like, oh, yeah, it's just, this is really just a presentation of a concept with demonstrations on how you would apply it to the different rules. What I found is that people really like the dedicated stuff. They would much rather have a campaign for TFT, which was the last one, or a campaign for Old School Essentials, which is this. But in this particular case, the project that I'm working on right now, the last one of the year or the first one of the next year, is the first iteration in what I'm calling the Infinite Archipelago, which is a series, hopefully will be a series of small settings that are relatively self-contained.
What was that? The Infinite Archipelago?
Infinite Archipelago. So
that's a very Connolly-esque name, dude. I gotta say. That's extremely Connolly-esque.
Yeah. So basically what it is, though, is like, you let's say that we start with Cedra, or we start with let's say we start with my Viking setting, Nordland, right? So you have Nordland, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in a bunch of make it an island or something self-contained, and then you're like, okay, well now we're going to get on a ship and go somewhere. Where are you going to go? Well, here's part of the Infinite Archipelago, which is a self-contained setting that is totally not ancient Egypt, and I'm going to put that 5 hexes away from Nordland. And then over in this direction, I'm going to have the Isle of Cedra, which is kind of a Gothic Europe sort of feel. And then 3 or 4 down from that, or 10 weeks sail, because you want it to be far away, is totally not ancient Japan, or totally not, because you got to have samurais from somewhere, right? So the Infinite Archipelago is basically saying you get to build your world however you want to. It's really no different than any other world building exercise. But what it does, in my mind, is it gives the game master and the players something that they can bite in that it's not so big that it's like a little bit contrived where it's, here's the area we're actually going to be playing. And here's and it runs off the map, right? I've only drawn this, but trust me, there's more. Well, no, bound it. We're just going to say bound it. And if you want more, you can put whatever you need next to it. And I think I figured that you could potentially have well over 100 of these things on an Earth-sized world and still be weeks of sailing away from each one. Right.
So how big are each of these hexes that you're talking about?
About 500 nautical miles from flat to flat, which really translates to roughly 250,000 square miles of area.
Are there ninjas? Because if you got samurai, you goddamn well better have ninjas.
Right. I mean, so there aren't in my Viking setting, there are no ninjas. There are actually some secret assassin types in the Cedra setting. Because one of the countries has a bit of a Thailand feel to me, sort of a Southeast Asia sort of feel.
Red light district. I get where you're going here. All right.
Yeah. Okay. I suppose it's you pick your challenges as you want. Yeah. So anyway, so Cedra is the Old School Essentials conversion of that material, and it's the two systems are each fun. They're both light and streamlined, but they're definitely not the same. And there are big differences in cosmology. Right, priests actually have real gods in the Old School Essentials. In the classic D&D stuff, gods are real. In TFT, there are no functional gods. Priests are spellcasters. They're wizards, or they have the priest title. The one religion that really gets a lot of play, and it gets play in Cedra, is Enoch, the Enochian religion, and it started off as a Ponzi scheme. Right, where
all religions start off as a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah, that was kind of the inside fastball that you have to swing at. But there was no ever pretense of it being real. So the cosmology is different. One of the things about OSE and a lot of the D&D games is because progression in the old school stuff is geometric, the number of experience that you need doubles each level, more or less, and it's XP for gold, right? So the rewards have to be very carefully scaled, or else you fuck everything up. So it's a non-trivial. I learned that lesson the fun way and the hard way when I did the solo conversion. This is not my first rodeo in doing this. And it was non-trivial to make the switch, but it's worth doing, and it's a lot of fun when it's done right. Trying to actually, the most fun encounter, and one that I spent forever on, was the big climactic battle of Dragon Hunt, where a big I think it's a red dragon, fights 3 PCs of relatively high level, and trying to figure out something where you don't have a too easy on either direction, right? The dragon doesn't just wipe, and the party doesn't just beat up the thing and take its treasure. So that was kind of fun. And the other thing that was kind of fun, and I didn't realize it, but that kind of climactic battle with a red dragon is over in 3 rounds, almost.
Jesus Christ, really?
Yeah, because what happens is that unless you have to be careful, because if you just do a stand-up fight, if the dragon wins initiative, they do breath weapon damage based on their hit points, right?
Hit points, yeah.
So they throw down like 50 hit points. Your wizard is dead.
Yeah.
Pretty much, right? Because even if they save, maybe. But a lot of these wizards, they can't take more than 20, 25 hit points, even if they're like 9th level or whatever. So the wizard is probably dead. The elf archer or whatever, maybe not. And maybe your fighter type is still standing. If the alpha strike from the players works and they win initiative, you whittle down the dragon's hit points enough so that first breath weapon, because they always breathe first, right? That's right there in the OSE rules. Then the first breath weapon doesn't kill the wizard, and after that, it's just a matter of time. But I was surprised at how decisive high-level OSE combat was.
Really?
Like it's going to be This is not something that
define high level, Tim. Sorry, Doug, because in Tim's game we got to 6th level. 6th level in Tim's game was really high. That was powerful. Right. Like I was a walking goddess, Kojak. Remember? I was like the head of the town. I was like a badass. I'm walking around like big balls and shit. So that's like 6th level. If I think I got
Dragon Hunt for where's my Dragon Hunt for OSE? I think is like 8th, 9th, 10th level characters. They're up there.
That's end game level shit for OSE.
It was, and that's why balancing that encounter for and it's a solo game, right? It needs to be balanced. This is not something where you can say yes if you walk into the game. This was the four adventures were branch path, like choose your own adventure solo adventures. So it needs to be balanced, right? There are some places where you're like, no, that's the big ass dragon, and if you walk in there, he's going to eat you, and that's just the way it's going to be. And the challenge there is to have the intellect to not go into the dragon's lair. Like to say, right? Not all encounters have to be fair, but when you're doing a 9th level solo and this is the climactic fight, you kind of have to make it so that you can win.
Yeah.
And so from that perspective, as a commercial thing and a really meeting expectations, you need to have that be a winnable fight. It doesn't have to be an easy fight.
Right.
Part of making that fight fun is that you can lose.
Well,
And
I mean, how did you make it different, Doug, than the standard thing? Or you walk into the cave, there's the dragon, initiative roll, determines the whole thing, breath weapon or magic missile or fireball or lightning bolt
or whatever it is, right?
Yeah. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
So how do you make it other than just a fucking walk in and start beating the shit out of each other? Whoever gets initiative wins. How do you make something like that, a high level OSC game, interesting?
So that one had a lot to do with how you approach the fight, because if you think of it as kind of a cloud of passages, right? And I don't mean like on the map, although that was true too, but there are things that you can do that give you, like, oh, if you do this and you're careful and you make this saving throw to find the thing, or a skill roll or whatever it was. I think I used some roll under attribute skill checks, because that was what the thing called for. So let's say you find the secret passage and you go under. Well, then you win initiative automatically because you've done the prudent thing. If you just walk in, the dragons, or God forbid you let the dragon take off and start flying around, you're deeply fucked because you made a tactical error. And I also wrote some extra rules in there for that, like the same way that I wrote into Vampire Hunter Belladonna. I included some very, very, very cut down grappling rules, because when I go after a vampire, I want it grabbing you, biting your neck, and sucking your blood, not just like I point and I level drain you. So I wanted it different. So I wrote some very, very basic bite and slurp. Oh, that's a terrible. This is not the crowd to use that phrase.
I love it.
This is not the crowd to use that phrase. But anyway, so it's like, ruling's not rules, but like Xander Harris said in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the rules give you, rules borders in an end zone, right? So the when necessary, I deployed some mechanics for this sort of thing, including when the dragon flies in, grabs you, and flies away, and then takes dinner to go. And that was one of the things where, if you let the dragon take off, I was like, they will absolutely pick off the adventurers one at a time. And it's a smart creature. It will absolutely eat the wizard first. So that's kind of, I think, how you keep it interesting, is you allow some real unfairness if people make the wrong choices.
The most fun I ever had with a dragon encounter was my brother we were doing a game and he had a barbarian and a wizard. And it was kind of just me and him at the time. I think I had one other guy playing, who was playing a shaman. And instead of the standard just fight the white dragon shit, his guy was like 12th level. This is a 5e game, right? So his guy was like 12th, 13th level. And he had like 13 followers. And he was walking around like big balls badass, right? And I had the white dragon, as is portrayed, as the best hunter. My brother's barbarian was the barbarian that followed the basically the god of hunting, right? It was the Arrow King. And so this is like a match against two hunting mentalities, right? And so this dragon was a young dragon, right? And in my head, I'm like, it's not going to just jump in and just get killed. It's going to abduct one of his followers, which makes him go and say, oh shit, I got to like save my man, right? He goes and saves his man. His man had been half encased in ice with his white dragon, and the white dragon would torture him and then bleed him out. And there was like in the ice and the snow, there's like pink snow everywhere from the constant torturing and healing, right? And so my brother's guy gets there finally, the big ass barbarian, and the dragon says, okay, you want your man? I could kill him right now if you want, if you don't do what I say. But if you do what I say, I will free him. And the challenge to my brother's character was, listen, I've produced a first batch. I'm a young dragon. I produced a first batch of what I call Dragonborn in my game. Half dragons, half humans, right? I kind of mixed it up. It's not the standard 5e Dragonborn. And she says I was too young. They were inadequate for my needs. They were just basically a bunch of runts, a bunch of West Virginia inbred Dragonborn. I want a badass man like you to impregnate me so I can produce children with you. And in exchange, I will free your man.
How old were you guys when you were doing
this? Is 2 years ago, dude.
Oh,
and so my brother's sitting
I'm not
there
sure if that's better. I don't know if that makes it better or worse.
it was intense. It was intense. It was my brother's like, he did not expect. He's walking in like big balls, waiting to swing his badass warhammer, and he didn't expect fuck me and impregnate me, and I'll free your man if you do so. So he just sat there stunned. And the other player, that's right, Dwayne was playing. Dwayne was like stunned at the time. It wasn't a combat encounter. There were 50 Dragonborn. He could have gone in for a big fucking fight. His other 12 followers, but he walked up and said, "Here's the proposition." So my brother's sitting there looking. I'm looking at his face because this is like he had no idea this was coming. I'm looking at his face, and I saw it as soon as I saw it. I'm gonna fuck the bitch because I sent him a picture of what she looked like. I'll find it if you want. I said, I'm gonna. So he nailed her, impregnated her, and now he's got like 68 fucking little Dragonborn to raise. It's 5 years later in the campaign. But that is a non-fight dragon encounter. That's what I was sort of getting at. Is like there's a lot of ways to make a dragon interesting rather than kill the motherfucker. You know what I mean? No. There's a whole lot of ways to make that encounter interesting.
So you got this from Baldur's Gate, right? This is like
I didn't.
Baldur's Gate got it from Joe, one of the two. Yeah.
The game. I only got through the first act of that. I didn't finish it yet.
Yeah, I did. I just finished it.
Did you? Yeah, I took a break because who has the time? Jesus Christ. That thing is intense.
You need a cigarette and a drink after the end there?
Well, I told them, I said, here's the other thing too. I always make, whenever the character's banging my game, I make them do a performance check. It's pretty much a dex check or strength, whatever they want. And if you fail your performance check, I mean, you roll a 1, you pull a Tim on a performance check when you're fucking someone. You know what it is. You know what happens on a 1. You know, it's just the most humiliating, embarrassing moment. You think you pulled in, Mr. Average 9 or a 10 or something like that. But it was pretty good. It was pretty good.
Hey, Doug, I have a question.
Rob is like
Rob is the terrain following warning on an airplane. Pull up, danger,
Jesus
caution,
Christ.
Terrain. Rob,
he's like the Mormon who joined our group all of a sudden out of nowhere. whoa, wait a minute. What are we talking about? Dragon sex.
Bring it, Rob.
Okay. So when you said that the dragon breath weapon does its current hit point, that's true in OSC and it's true in BX, but I was just curious because I always played it, the dragon does their breath weapon with their max hit points.
Oh, it's current.
And I checked it in OD&D and it's ambiguous, but the way it reads, it leans more to max hit point because they kind of say use this chart for the dragon's hit points and breath weapon. So, and then in AD&D, it doesn't say it at all. It just says.
Oh, I think it does in there, Rob.
Huh?
I'm almost positive it's like current hit points in AD&D is.
AD&D. That's how it rolled. Yeah, that's how it went in AD&D, at least. I don't know how OSC is, but I would expect.
And then I checked some old school forums, and they got polls on how they handle it in the AD&D stuff, and it looked like the overwhelming, like 85%. In this one poll handles it the full hit points of the dragon always.
Yeah. No. Well, I mean, I wrote it into the so one of the great things about making these adventures relatively self-contained is I can do whatever the fuck I want. And in this particular case, this is how it works because honestly, if they do full hit points every time, with the number of characters you can comfortably manage in a solo like this, you can't win.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just curious what was your insight. How would that change your equation there? Because...
Oh God.
Oh boy.
I don't know. I don't think that I could have done a conversion with that. I would have had to have rewritten the paragraphs, and that was really not where I wanted to go because David had really sculpted a nice network of paragraphs and paths and I don't remember if you had play tested the TFT version, But playtesting of that had been very satisfying. Actually, the funny story about that is originally we scoped it out and said, oh yeah, it's a solo adventure, go solo. And we heard back from the playtesters and we're like, I just got curb stomped in the first fight with an introductory puny creature. Like it was like I didn't even last through the first round. It was like I just got killed and eaten right away. I'm like, well, take 2 characters. And like I got halfway through and both of them are dead and mangled and dragon food. I'm like, all three sample characters? And they're like, all right, now it's a fight. But we were almost looking to have to rewrite the whole thing because even in the fantasy trip, it was it required all 3 40-point characters or 39-point characters, which is a lot, right? I mean, it's like a 39-point character in terms of like maybe it's a 9th level, right? So it kind of so it was a lot, right? And so then when I did the conversion, I looked at the rules very carefully. And came to the whatever conclusions that I came to, and sculpted it that way. And you had a your Orcomatic or whatever you called it. Your simulator was very helpful in scoping a lot of those battles.
Good.
And also one of the nice things about the way that the D&D basic especially works is that hit dice are meaningful. And the total number, because it's really an attrition system, you lose your hit points, but you're still basically at full effectiveness, except for the Dragon's Breath weapon, maybe. But because it's an attritive system, as long as you're slinging the right number of hit dice back and forth, you can do okay with encounter balance. So the older games I think are a little easier to get in the neighborhood of challenging.
Well, there's not as much to deal with. You know what I mean? You're not dealing with a million variables. Right. By the way, I just looked up the breath weapon in OSE. Can be used up to 3 times per day. All caught in the area suffer damage equal to the dragon's current hit points.
Okay,
Save
it was
versus
explicit.
Breath. Save versus breath for half. And cloud, cone, and line gives you the shapes of it. So yeah, it's just like AD&D.
Explicit in BX, the original BX.
It's mode based. It's mode based.
Now, everybody listening to this, I have a confession. I don't know why people. I'm sorry. I was only half paying attention to the conversation because I was looking all of this stuff. So I didn't. I just inadvertently stumbled into whatever this X card business. People.
Well, you zoned out at the right time, Rob.
It's just typical me. So
that's why they say, when you talk about this, it goes into soft focus and that sort of detail. Unless you're Joe, then the detail is right there out on the table.
You got to magnify that shit if you're me. Yeah.
Hey, Eric, I shared the link to the D&D combat simulator that Doug was talking about. It's available on my website.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And D&D is something that this is something that was very useful to me and will be again as I come into it because it's a nice way of getting a good feel for kind of what percentage of the time each side is going to win or lose. And
it looks like a 10th grade algebra fucking quiz. Jesus Christ!
It's exactly what it is. It's all algebra. It's exactly what it is. We do the math so that you don't have to.
I'm a lawyer. I divide by thirds. It's the only math.
We don't let lawyers near math.
I divide by thirds. It's the only math lawyers know is dividing by thirds.
You fill out the characters, Joe.
For me.
You fill out the characters, Joe, and then it runs 10,000 combats and tells you the result. So it will allow you to answer questions which is better, +1 AC or +1 the damage, or plus.
You need a good sample pool. Yeah.
So when I wrote Dragon Heresy, I had a spreadsheet that I did, which is somewhat similar, that I called the Orc-O-Matic, like Gallagher's Sledge-O-Matic. But it basically what I did with it was when I was doing a feat or a power up or whatever, I wanted the feats to be approximately the same value as an ability score improvement under the 5th edition system, and that was where you find out that certain standard feats are just like completely overpowered, and some of them are worthless. But it gave me the opportunity to tweak it until it was one of these things where you knew exactly what a +1 to damage or a -1 to armor class was, because that was consistent. But if you had something like Polearm Master or whatever, or you had something that when it came into play, it was really good, but it didn't come into play all the time, right? If you get a bonus to damage, you're gonna hit it with your mace every single time to get that bonus to damage. If you have something like, oh, when you have this situation, then you need to do differently, right? You need, because if it only comes up half the time or a third of the time, it needs to be more valuable to compensate. Or else it's going to be one of those things where it's in GURPS we talk about noob traps, where it looks like a good thing to do, but it's not, because like the great example is extra attack, which is what it sounds like, versus +6 to skill, which is roughly the same point cost in GURPS. Well, +6 to skill comes with better defenses. You can do more things with it, and the +6 to skill is the penalty that you take for rapid striking, which is attacking twice. So extra attack, putting 25 points into extra attack, is a noob trap unless you intend to be using multiple skills, because extra attack applies to all of them, whereas +6 to one skill only applies to that skill. So that's a bit of system mastery that you kind of have to bring to the table. Anyway, so that's what you have to bring to the table. And I don't like noob traps. I like it when, if you get something, it's going to do what it says on the tin. And if there are special cases, then those are made explicit. Only do this if. As I'm writing the Mission X role-playing game, which is powered by GURPS, it's going to be one of the first full-length GURPS third-party games. Yeah,
Nice.
I'm very excited. I'm very excited about that. But as I'm doing that, one of the things that we're doing as we're improving the rules is ruthlessly hunting out false choices. This looks like a good idea, but it's not. Or if you don't take this, like combat reflex is deliberately that way. Actually, buying up health in regular GURPS is deliberately that way. You get to health 14 or 15, which is only 40 or 50 points. It's really hard to kill you because you're rolling it against like a 95% chance of success. 3D under 14 is 90%, so you're up for a long time. So we're trying to balance the that so that the noob traps are taken away. But,
so in D&D, is it better to have 2 attacks or +6 to hit? Well, the answer is, according to my comp, if you just stand there and whack each other, it's better to have 2 attacks.
Okay.
You get a 70. The Alex, when he has 2 attacks versus Brian, who has +6 to hit over, but all the other stats are the same. Alex still wins 70% of the time. But
that makes sense to me, right? Because you're doubling the effective damage output as opposed to 60%. So yeah, but that's the kind of thing that your little program is good for. If there happens to be a surprise, you'll find it because you'll run 10,000 trials.
Yeah, and what I used it for was a starting point when I was writing my Majestic Fantasy RPG. How much to assign bonus? The actual, does it really work in an actual game? I had to wait into the actual game, but at least it got me to the starting point where running the campaign provided good feedback.
Right. Yep.
And the other quirk
right.
about D&D is it makes a difference whether you're high level and thus have a lot of hit points, or low level and yet don't have a lot of hit points, because the equation changed. Because when you don't have a lot of hit points, a lucky series of 2 or 3 blows still wins the day with the other side.
Right. It can be swingy. That's right. That's right.
Hey, Rob, I get to out-Rob you.
Uh-oh.
I found it. Page 30 on the monster manual.
Oh, page 30.
The breath weapon causes damage equal to the dragon's hit points.
There you go.
But it doesn't say current hit point. It just says hit points. It doesn't say max or current, so it's still ambiguous.
Well, it's always ambiguous.
Yeah, it's always been that way, Rob. In
Equal to
AD&D,
the dragon's hit points. So if you change a weapon after he gets hit, his breath weapon equal to his hit points. That
Exactly. That's how like everybody in the world interpreted that. I think, as far as I know.
No, I checked a bunch.
Clearly not.
I checked a bunch of AT&T
But I mean, in
ones.
any case, Gavin made it
Yeah.
explicit in the
Yeah,
release.
yeah, he
so I was able to piggyback
gotta
on
look at
that,
this shit.
but yeah, but I'll be the sort of reefing this back to narcissistic me. I'll be approaching the conversion of the Cedra Scorpion Labyrinth and Monster Hunter Belladonna, sort of the sequel to Vampire Hunter Belladonna. All right, this is cat here.
Tim, I can't tell because
very sharp cat.
The Monster Manual
Sure.
font is
Let me
1
see.
point or 1.5 at max, Tim. So
I
I
wanna see
can't
Joe.
really read it right now.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm looking at
Belladonna
Doug's cover.
so the Belladonna adventure for the Kickstarter is a sequel to the other Belladonna.
That's right. Let me see if
okay.
I've got Monster Hunter Belladonna kicking around here. This is the I really got to give mad props to my artist on this one. So this is the cover to the TFT cover.
Gotcha.
By Kagdas Demiralp,
wow.
guy from Turkey, and boy did he overachieve.
Oh, hold on, Doug. I'm going to give you a full screen. Hold on.
Yeah, give him the full
Okay,
screen
okay.
for that picture.
There you go.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
Nice, very cool.
Yeah, that
I never thought of opening the whole damn thing up and looking at it.
Look, even your cat's reading it.
Yeah.
You know. So, but anyway,
victory.
The artist really did nicely, and you know, I'm you can see my background. I've got swords and stuff, and so I'm an amateur sword fighter and shield fighter, and I was my art team has always been, mostly because if they're not this way, then they don't work with me long. Expectations mismatch is never fun because they want to get paid for the work they do, as they should. I want to pay them for the work that they do, but I also want, I don't want World of Warcraft axes. I want axes that look like something that you actually kill people with.
Right.
Anyway, so he was very receptive to feedback on stances and posture, and hey, here's a photograph of an actual longsword from the Arms and Armor website, et cetera, et cetera. And so he really embraced the kit, which was great. And so I'm very happy with that particular cover. Actually, I think the Cedra Monster Hunter Belladonna and Rick Trula, who's been with me since Dungeon Grappling. So 20 Kickstarters he's worked with me on.
Wow.
Rick did. It actually didn't. Yeah, can you hit me full screen again?
Yep. 1 sec.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yep.
There we go.
So Rick did a nice job with this. Although, here's a piece of advice for Kickstarter people: if you're going to do a dark cover, lighten it before you send it to print, because I've never run across a printer that doesn't over ink the cover, because they really don't want it if it's faded, the whole thing is out. But every time, and that could be me, in that I'm not as facile with like color spaces. Like there might be a way to get exactly CMYK and calibrated monitors and that, but I'm not there. But my experience is to tune it. If I tune it a little lighter, it prints more like what the image looks like when Rick sends it to me.
Now, on a personal note, Doug, you just don't do reenactment. You do live steel reenactment. Is that correct? Did I remember that correctly?
We do blunt steel. Yes, we do use steel. But yeah, no, we don't use. We occasionally use sharps for demonstrations, but we don't fight each other with sharps. Like so, my Viking sword here is
Wow.
Right, I can, not a problem. It's the edges are maybe rounded millimeter and a half. Right, so. But a lot of what I do, especially when it comes to the stuff is I'm thinking, okay, well, what could this be if I were doing it on the field? And actually, one of my favorite things to yap about is, so this is about as battle axy as a battle axy gets, right?
Mm.
Oh, nice.
Right. So this is a combat axe. This is what you would go fight with. right? How much do you think it weighs relative to the sword?
3 pounds, the most.
Not much.
Yeah, so Rob probably already knows this. This thing weighs almost a pound less than the sword.
Wow.
Right now, the
And
weight's all the way here.
And the shape of that bill matters too. You can hook stuff with that.
You can. And the other thing is that if you look at, let me get this right on the camera here. Right. So the way that they would build these things is this was good steel, and this tended not to be. And it was built, and so and so a lot of the axes that are 3 pounds and 5 pounds, those represent tools. That's a felling axe, right? That's not a something where you're gonna wham, right, and come back to it, right? The fast is alive and slow is dead.
Well, you'd be happy to know, Doug, in my Majestic Fantasy RPG, I don't have the double-bladed axe. I explicitly call them out as ceremonial,
right,
for show only, and the battle axe is similar to that.
Right.
And then there's a two-handed one, and then there's the small one.
So what I always do when I'm giving art direction is I'll send them right to, or actually I don't send them. I get pictures from the Arms and Armor website is really good. There's another for armor for kit. I like to send them to Arm Street, which real historical people will say is a terrible thing to do, but when you draw armor, you really want it to look cool. And Arm Street is much more historical than a lot of, it's historical-ish to historical. It's better than a lot of the stuff that you see, but it also gives a lot of fun detail that the art does. That the artist can put into it. So, but there's a bunch of great stuff. And hell, I mean, when I was doing my book on shields for GURPS, I would send the artist, oh, this is a shield from a museum, or even better, a restored shield from a museum. Because oddly enough, and this is something, if you've ever read the blog, a collection of unmitigated pedantry, ACOOP, oddly enough, people in the Dark Ages still like to look cool. So they painted their armor, they painted their shields, they wore bright clothing, everything. You know, you get this feeling that it's all dark and dull and stuff. But there's a reason why people would travel the world to look for dyes, right? Yeah. And
the only problem
purple was for royalty and stuff like that, right? So
the only problem they had, the dyes were somewhat muted, although they did have a few bright colors, just not the full range we have today.
Yeah. So anyway, that's this is a topic that I could talk enthusiastically, if maybe not as informed as I should be.
Well, one more question about things. Yeah. Have your shield ever been splintered?
My shield, no. We have splintered some shields. My shield is faced and backed and edged with rawhide. And using it properly, you don't really do that. That was one of the interesting things about using the shield, is mostly you stick the shield out there and make people not want to swing at you. Yeah, Matt Easton is fantastic. Really, really good. Todd's Workshop is great. Bunch of others. So,
Doug, you were talking earlier about the cost of Kickstarters and how to make a successful one and all that kind of thing. I think that was pretty interesting. This is earlier, as in prior to the first time we actually tried to start our stream.
Yeah, so
1.0,
yeah,
stream 1.0 for tonight.
Yeah, so we were talking about that. This is my something like 20th Kickstarter.
And by the way, folks, the short link on the bottom of the screen, I know it's been up there for almost an hour, and I don't think you even mentioned it, but if you go to Tenkar-Tavern.game/Cedra, it'll take you right to Doug's Kickstarter. I mean, I was showing the books before. I have it for the fantasy trip because I gotta learn the fantasy trip. So I'm running it at North Texas in June. So I have the fantasy trip stuff. It's very pretty and well done. Doug does quality work. I'm not just blowing smoke up his ass because he was in my B team. But I've known Doug for a better part of a decade.
That's true, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So, but the OSE stuff is stuff that I can actually use in a running a campaign with the knuckleheads you see on the screen, because they're not going to play.
Don't talk about Rob like that, Eric. That's not really not nice. That's
Hey.
really not nice.
Hey, I have it recorded, Doug. When you, well, I think you started hanging out with it a little bit before you joined my 5e campaign, but I keep a record of all the VTT campaigns I run, and it was the Fandelver. Yeah, it was February of 2015.
Yep.
Wow.
No, and I started blogging December of 2012. And that was really practice to write for Steve Jackson Games and for Pyramid, because that's where I was doing all my work. And I figured that the best way to write in Steve Jackson Games style, which is not trivial, is to write in Steve Jackson Games' style. So I started a blog and tried to do all of my writing in their house style, which helped my writing immensely. And you know, the Steve Jackson Games folks are quite finicky when it comes to quality writing, and so it upped my writing game too, which is interesting, because I was an academic, right? I had engineering degrees, and then I was a consultant, and so you write business English, and then if you're going to write useful role-playing content, it's got to be entertaining, right? Yeah. I mean, you don't want to put people to sleep while you're reading the stuff, and it also has to be succinct, right? And so writing a good game book is super challenging, right? Because this isn't just patting ourselves on our back. It's got all the challenges of a technical manual. Right? I mean, look at how much time we spent on hit points of breath weapon, right? Right? I mean, current versus max versus average, even, right? Because it could be any of those, and so you need to anticipate common questions without indulging the tendency to try and cover every case, and you flip that back to the game master and say, hey, we're not going to spend 12 pages worrying about edge cases that will never happen, or can be cut off by a game master with the gumption to say no. A very powerful word, no. Power word, no. Ninth level spell. But anyway, so yeah. The writing and stuff. I started blogging in 2012, and I think I started getting published in Pyramid shortly thereafter.
Yes, and you got the name Gaming Ballistic because you wrote that one article on
calculating
the ballistic. Right. It wasn't modern firearms, it was bows and stuff, right?
No, that was the Deadly Spring. My first 3 articles in Pyramid, one of them was actually a very short piece for a game called Frag, that Steve Jackson Games published. Then the next one was called 10 Hut, which was about military rank, kind of getting more granular. And then the third one was called Interior and Terminal Ballistics for GURPS, which was every bit as pretentious a title as I was at the time.
Didn't you have quadratic equations in one of them?
No, I had transcendental equations in the Deadly Spring, which is, yeah, that was even worse. That was like sine theta over theta kind of stuff. That was a whole different story. But anyway, so the gun thing is where I got the Gaming Ballistic from. Ironically, I do not have a single product. No, that's not true anymore. I think there's a gun in one of the TFT things as a weapon, but almost no firearm content in any of my stuff. That will change substantially with the publication of Mission X if I can afford to bring it to life.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful. That's what the Kickstarter is for. But yeah, so coming back to it, Joe asked about the business and the budgeting of Kickstarters. Yeah, it's after doing 20 of these and talking about spreadsheets and stuff. It's really interesting how the calculus of it is, and what are you trying to do? Like the Untouchables. What are you prepared to do? Well, what are you trying to do? Right? Are you trying to, like I am? I'm trying to make it a self-sustaining business? Are you just trying to subsidize your hobby? Like I have a gaming habit and I like to buy lots of games, and I'm going to do role-playing game writing and publishing in order to subsidize my RPG habit and stuff. So I was a manager at a hard disk drive company. I ran a clean room R&D group, diamond light carbon and deposition and stuff like that, tooling and equipment design and development. But all things come to an end, and that came to an end in the summer of 2020. But I had been publishing a bit then, and then I talked to my wife. I'm like, hey, I'd like to try and make my hobby job my only job. And she's like, okay, go team. And so I've been trying to do that ever since. And for a while, it looked really good. But this last year has just been really brutal.
Why? What do you attribute that to? What's going on? Like,
well, the economy
trends,
is rough, but I just feel like I'm not inspiring people to come and I don't know. If I knew, I'd fix it. But overall, every product, whether it's GURPS or TFT or OSE or anything, I feel like it's I've been 20 to 30% lower than in prior years. And I don't think my product has gotten worse. In some respect, it's better. But you know, the customer is clearly telling me that there's something I could do differently. But I'm not quite sure what it is, and it's.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm afraid of with my stuff. I mean, I'm nowhere near making an attempt like you to make this my livelihood. But what I want to do is share my stuff, and it's easier to share when you have good art, good layout, good editing, and so. But that takes money. So I do want some return on my time. So basically, like, don't hold me to this, but like half I like it for the return, but the other half I want to save and use it for the next project.
Right.
And the whole Waterland thing set me back. But with this with the positive response to how to make a fantasy sandbox, I might got that cushion back where I can start buying the art for the next project ahead of time and just grow that kitty for it.
Right.
And then if I'm lucky, then I'll top out with that, and I'll be able to meet the budget for the next few projects.
Right, exactly. And that's kind of where I want to be too, because like, so last year with the TFT Cedra, it ran into some development delays, some significant development delays in generating the manuscript. So I pulled in Artifacts of Legend, my GURPS Magic Items project. I talked to the person who was going to do it. I said, hey, can you do this? Yes, I can do it. He did it, got it to me. I launched the Kickstarter. I ran the Kickstarter. I fulfilled the Kickstarter. And I was still inside getting the manuscript to Cedra. But ideally, I'm turning over a new project every 2 to 2.5 months. Right, because if I were,
I envy you.
I mean, that's what I have to do that's what I have to do if I'm going to make a life of it. Because
what about the tail though, Doug? What about, like, you put out no tail? Is there nothing?
Nah.
Jesus Christ! I would have thought there'd be more.
No, hardly anything. Nothing worth talking about.
Wow. So it's like you put it out, you sell it, and that's done. You don't get any other sales.
That's right. That's.
I
mean, it's not. So the only time that's not true is when, like now, I'm offering everything that I've done in OSE as add-ons or pledge levels or whatever to my current, because the last couple. So the solo adventures had 800 backers. It's my best number of backers ever. And if I could pull that on every project, I would be incredibly happy. If I could pull 1.5 times that, like if I could get 1,200 to 1,400 backers on a regular basis, there's nothing I couldn't do. Full games, big hardcovers, slip cases, whatever, I could make it happen. Below $350 for a black and white or below $450, $500 for color, that starts to be below the minimum viable product to bring in enough and then have enough return to help bootstrap the next project, right? Because what I want to be able to do, right? So, and I know that you guys have been talking about this and said, but what I would really like to do is to be able to, much like the Cedra project, right? I can't show you an OSE, but I can show you the covers, I can show you the art, I can show you the layout, I can show you things, and people are like, oh, this is real. It's going to be real. I have faith in it. And there's limited risk here.
Yeah.
And Kickstarter mostly serves at that point to size the print run.
Yeah.
And to reimburse the art, right? The art is like 60% of the total budget of one of these projects. And so, that's where the crowdfunding comes into play. But it lets me do that sort of thing, and the more that I can, but when I'm in the place that I am, 300, 400, 500 backers. When I was doing a consulting gig for a helicopter company down in Texas, and this chief financial officer was kind of getting into the consultants, and everyone who was working with me was multiple Ivy and B school and whatever, and super degreed and pedigree. This is a down home guy from Texas, a CFO. He's like, look, I don't know what you're pulling from Harvard and Stanford and all that stuff, but in my business it's real simple. It's margin times turns. That's it. How many? What's your profit margin, and how many times can you turn that money in a year?
It's interesting. Eric, are you seeing this? I mean, you got your finger on the pulse of the whole goddamn Kickstarter thing. You're back like 68,000 of them, haven't you? Like, give or take. I mean,
I am a super backer.
Oh, wait a minute, sorry. Is Rach listening? I shouldn't have said that too loud. You're not on headset here.
Treadmill with her headphones because I can hear.
Yeah.
So I think I'm safe.
I want to get you in trouble there,
Nah, yeah, you do. Fuck you.
I know I do.
So let me answer Mr. Gunn's question. I don't have to. That's why you do the Kickstarters to size the print run. So what I can do though is I usually print at Mixam, Mixam, Mixam.com, because they've done a great job with me, and they let me choose my paper weights. Eric has commented in the past, and the tactile. I use 100 pound paper, and I use 130 pound cardstock for the cover, and people like it. I like it. I want to make products that I want to handle.
Yeah.
And so
there's no paper on these pages. If you've ever gotten something that's print on demand from drive-through, if you do like the low end soft cover print runs,
right?
The paper quality is sometimes bleed through. It's the reason why there are companies or self-publishers that will use the high-end color print for black and white because they want to avoid that bleed through. And that's the way you can do it. You just got to pay more for it. So.
Right. So I use the thickest possible paper that they offer on almost everything that I do. The only time that I might break that rule is if I'm doing a very long book. Actually, there was I did a consulting gig for a nuclear power plant once, and they had a set of critical reduction gears that took 2.5 years of lead time to manufacture.
Oh,
and it was it was hugely expensive part, and if it broke, they had to replace it in order to keep the plant online. So they had a gazillion-dollar part sitting around, and they had to pay the carrying cost on that because, as Mr. Gunn said, the lead times were so astoundingly long. But no, so when with Mixam, if I'm doing a 500 book or a 300 book, because usually for me at least, I'll get about 60% of my Kickstarter stuff print plus PDF, and 40% PDF only ish. And then sometimes I'll have and 10 or 20% of people will plus up for things like these quick reference cards that I have printed. So like, if I'd have a 500 backer Kickstarter, I'll probably have to order 300 books, and that's really not enough. And this ties into Joe's long tail comment. 300 books, I'll usually try and order about 15 to 20% more so that I have some to sell, but I'm certainly not ordering twice that. I still have 1,000 copies of Dragon Heresy in a warehouse in Tennessee because I was like, well, surely I will sell through these. So whether it's 500 or whether it was 1,000 or 1,500, I was like, oh, it's a better per book cost if I order 1,500, and of course I will sell through 1,500 copies of Dragon Heresy. Yeah, no, I got 1,000 copies still sitting in Tennessee.
But your long tail books, where can people buy them?
Not
your PDFs. I mean, they're on.
No, I mean they can buy them from my website. Actually, Dragon Heresy is in distribution. So every now and then I get a few dollars because one or two stores across the country will pick up a couple copies of Dragon Heresy. There might be more renewed interest if I ever had the working capital to go back and do, because Dragon Heresy started off as a full 3-volume 800. Yeah, 300 books is a short run. The most books I've ever printed at once is 1,000, and that was because I flipped over to I flipped that won't actually natural extra that actually won't help me because I do cash inventory. I don't do the anyway, I do cash inventory, so I don't have a holding cost. They're just sitting there and they're revenue to me. Anyway, I think the most I've ever printed is 1,000 of something. And that's because once you flip over to an offset print run, and I do my offset printing in Eastern Europe. Once you flip over, and you get to the point where the setup cost is divided by enough books. Doing that offset print run gets you better quality, better binding, especially for the thicker books. You can get them sewn, but you have to wait longer, right? So if I could again, if I could guarantee 500 physical sales, so I was typically doing 750 copies, everything gets better because then every product that I would do could have that offset print run with the better everything. Although I will say that for print on them for the saddle stitch stuff, it's really hard to. I use Livonia in Latvia, but I've also gotten quotes from someone in Estonia. I've occasionally gotten a quote. Actually, New Energy Press in the Netherlands, which always surprised me because Amsterdam is kind of a expensive place. They had great deals. They had good printing for a while. Yeah, no, I've not printed with them because Livonia has always been good to work with. But yeah, I use Eastern Europe. And say what you want, the Atlantic Ocean is just a way smaller than the Pacific, and that matters in terms of Lithuania is another good one. But yeah, it's really the old Baltic Soviet states that former Soviet states that really have a lot of good stuff. And if I could ever do something where I had enough backers, here's another thing, like counters and tokens and cards, heavy card stock and stuff. Poland is fantastic for printing game pieces. They have a lot of really good stuff there, and all of the factories are EU certified, and so you don't have to worry too much about CE mark and a lot of the quality control because they're required to do it that way. If you ever do anything out of China, every failure analysis story that I ever had in a industrial class ended with, and they substituted a crappy, cheaper component for the one that they were supposed to use, and therefore people died. That's not something that you get into a lot because with toxic paints and nasty chemicals and whatever.
Right.
There's a lot more regulation and quality control in Europe and the United States when it comes to that sort of thing. So you run into that sort of problem a lot less. I can. What I wind up doing is I ship from Riga to the United Kingdom, and I split off part of my order to the UK and reship for the rest of the world from Games Quest or Kickstu, and then the rest of the order comes to the East Coast and comes to Minneapolis by truck.
Is your long tail? Is it safe to say that your long tail is mostly PDF or all PDF?
The thing about the long tail is it's relative to any project that I might be running. It's inconsequential, right? I mean, when I launched, I had a couple of great days or months or whatever right when I launched my new web store because finally people could buy my stuff. I was on WooCommerce for a while and it was terrible and I wasn't good at running it and the program itself wasn't very good. And I went over to Shopify and it was just so much better. And I paid some real money to get a consultant who knew what they were doing to set up my store. And there are probably still problems with the store, but it's infinitely better than it was. And so, if I have a great month, I'll move. I think once I moved $1,000, but then it went away, right? I'll have other months where it's maybe a couple of hundred. And some of that is just first of all, my reach is small. My reach is not nearly what it needs to be, so that's one of the reasons why some of these Kickstarters can either surprise me good or surprise me bad. Is that if 1,000 people were like, "What is this Doug Cole? Wait, he has solo adventures. He has a book of ready to go NPCs. He's got this stuff. This is cool. I don't know of this, and now I know." Someone will come in and say, "I want everything you have," and they'll drop $350 on me. Like what is was it Avengers 2? Boom! You're looking for this, and they'll just come in and say, "Yeah, I want that," and that's the only time that the long tail really is anything worth talking about. For me, it's new or nothing.
The reason I asked you that question is because obviously you want to sell out your actual print stock, but I'm looking at my long tail sales, and yes, they're not as good as my Kickstarter, even back when I was even compared to my Majestic Fantasy Kickstarter, which was only $3,000.
But Rob, doesn't it help it if you do a new Kickstarter?
Well, let me finish, Joe. I got a point.
Yeah.
Over half of my sales are for the print-on-demand books. I don't think I would have nearly as many if it was just PDF only.
Oh, agreed. Totally agree. Like, so 60% of my typical volume, and even now that's true on the, I have it's actually gotten better as we've been talking, but, there are only 88 people who back my project right now. Let me refresh and make sure that that's still true. 89. We just got one more. But right. So of these 90, I can almost guarantee that about 60 of them are physical product. So 45% are print PDF only, and then another. Sorry, is that right? 44%, and then another 16. Yeah. So there you go. 60% either bought print and PDF or print PDF and the card deck.
But it's print on demand on drive-through RPG. In other words, they can order the book on drive-through.
Yes, no, that's so I don't. So this is a personal preference thing. That's a fine way to go. I don't like to work through drive-through because as I was getting into business, I got a couple of retail orders. And I'm like, yay, retail orders. Somebody ordered 10 of something, 10 copies of Dungeon Grappling. So I printed them at drive-through and Lightning Source, and they shipped them direct. And the three CM, the C, M, and Y were all offset. So it looked like a bad pair of 3D goggles. And after, I think I had one from Amazon that was screwed up, and then another one from drive-through that was screwed up. So now I just go to Mix'em. I get them, I look at them, and all of the inventory comes through me first.
Well, I'm not saying that you change to what you're doing now as far as the initial print run, but for your long tail, have a print-on-demand copy up there, and maybe you'll sell more on drive-through. I hear you about that. See this?
Yeah,
I ordered 4 of these. 3 of them came messed up
yeah,
to the point where I was able to fix the one
right.
by rebinding it. Well, I haven't finished the rebinding, but yeah, I hear you about the drive-through mistakes. But
Yeah, so part of me wants to so there's a couple of things. First of all, I have my spool to PDF thing down to a science with Mixam. I can get it right every time. I struggled to get a file with Amazon. I struggled sometimes to get a file accepted at Drive-Thru RPG, and this is stuff. Drive-Thru RPG hasn't been as bad as Amazon was because Amazon is trying to sell you their services, you know. And my problem with that was they're like, oh no, this isn't good. I'm like, you see this book that I'm holding up was printed with this file, so don't tell me it won't work. I'm holding the results that will work. But yeah, so it's a preference thing. I have resisted throwing up my stuff for POD. The profit margins aren't very good. But like I said earlier, margin times turns, right? If I'm all of a sudden pulling in 1,000 sales of something because people are doing print on demand, and they're not coming to my website, it'll be a win for me because it's not a sale at my web store versus a sale at drive-through. It's a sale at drive-through versus nothing.
Right.
So that might be something that I need to do.
yeah,
in
you were.
order
That's,
to.
I only suggested because you were complaining about reach, and I couldn't imagine what my sales would be like. They'd probably
Right.
be in the below 12 a year if I had my own web store.
So then the question is, because then the question for me becomes, how can I convert those drive-through sales to Kickstarter sales? Because
Well,
when I'm developing, because I don't know if they'll let you market to those people.
Yes, they will.
They will.
Mhm.
Yeah,
No.
you just email them. You have to add a little lead time, like a week or two. But
That's fine.
what
Yeah.
I did for mine is, so I did one thing stupid. It wasn't their fault. I didn't make a customized Kickstarter link for the first mailing. So I don't know how many of my backers came from that first mailing, but I asked them to email all my customers, which included the 12,000 people who downloaded Black Marsh. And
Okay. Okay.
but for my second mailing, I believe 60 of my backers came from the second mailing, which came 3 days before the end of the Kickstarter.
Right.
And that's out of
Yeah.
15,000 customers.
Right. No, and that's a very low. That was why when you pointed me at Kevin Crawford, said, "Hey, talk to this guy." He was talking about, and this was before this was a long time ago. He was talking about a mailing list that was damn near 6 figures. I'm sure that he has 6 figures now, but even when you think about that, he is profoundly successful multi-thousand copy Kickstarters all the time. But when you think about that, that's still only like a 2% of his mailing list are going for any particular product. So the hit rate on this, if I want 1,000 people, I need a 50,000 person reach,
That's
right?
what it
If I want to
seems like.
reliably do that. So that's where the real crux of the matter is. Like when one of the advantages of me being the only third party guy for GURPS and TFT is I can be a big fish in a relatively small pond because I'm the only one, other than Steve Jackson Games that's going to this. And even then, even though Steve will say, "Oh yeah, this is official Dungeon Fantasy role playing game material," Doug does it. He has our trust. Crom is in the loop. Sean Punch is in the loop when this stuff is being developed, and he sees this stuff. And yeah, if Doug does a full color bestiary, we're not gonna, right? Because it already exists. We don't need to cover that again. But even then, they're like, well, when is Steve Jackson Games going to do this thing that I've been shouting for since 2004? Well, but it exists. Oh yeah, but I don't want a third party thing. I want Steve Jackson Games thing, right? So that's where the really is a good idea. Like, so your Majestic Wilderlands role playing game, being able to sell the core rules is really important. Because otherwise, Otherwise, you're really looking at the most discretionary of discretionary income.
Yeah, I found it. I sell through a few game stores, and I found it really hard. I mean, the other RetroCon guys like Matt Finch tried to help, but they just, I couldn't. If I paid the shipping on what they were asking for, I would lose money, and I couldn't afford to do that.
Right. So, and part of it is what I'm looking to do is to turn the crank pretty hard and make it so that I'm doing well enough that I don't look over my shoulder and say, I do have this engineering degree.
Right.
So my standards, my expectations of myself are and this is not any implication on anybody else, but for what I've done before compared to what I'm doing now,
Right.
I need to do better in order to feel like
Well, maybe there is a wave you can catch because Matt Colville of whatever that Roman numeral company he calls himself has called his RPG a tactical RPG. And when I was reading his write-up, I was thinking, wait a minute, isn't that what the Fantasy Trip is? It's like the original tactical.
Kind of, yeah, pretty much. Chainmail, right? Although that was more big battles, but
the Fantasy Trip, yeah. I mean, they had melee and wizard.
Not only is the Fantasy Trip claimed that way, but I was just having a discussion with somebody on Discord who was private messaging me about, well, couldn't you do thus and such with the Fantasy Trip? I'm like, no, because of the rules, right? And the rules include a certain cosmology, like I think we talked about this. No real gods. No lay on hands, divine magic exists, but no functional imminent gods that you can chat with, or if you're Norse or Greek, have sex with. Right. So none of that. And and basically one of the rules is do not detract from the core experience of Melee and Fantasy Trip as a tactical dungeon combat game. And so, it's like if you're saying, oh, well, yeah, we're going to do a tactical dungeon crawl, that's TST's bread and butter, man. That's what it's for. The great thing about it, though, and I give mad props to Old School Essentials as well for this, and this is my goal for Mission X, which is powered by GURPS. Both TFT and Old School Essentials let you get to the table in 5 to 15 minutes from opening the book. You can just start playing, and the play experience is fast, right? I remember I wrote a blog post when I was playing with Eric, when we were playing with Eric on B Team. I think it was called 8 Little Combats All in a Row, because when it was a 2-hour session, we didn't play for very long, and we had 8 meaningful combats interspersed with a great deal of exploration. Now that's slick play, right? Whereas, if you have a game that drags a little bit more, you could spend an entire session of 4 hours doing one fight. And that could be epic. That could be awesome. But it's hard to argue with we explored, we fought, short, sharp, decisive, one way or the other combats, 8 in a row. And that was pretty good for a 2-hour game stretch.
Yeah,
so,
Tim and I had many GURP sessions dominated by a single combat.
Right, and so that's one of the things that we. But that's not a bad thing necessarily, as long as everyone's having fun. But there are some times when, like, actually the worst, and I just did a play test, and I had a rules concept that almost the worst thing you can do in a GURPS modern game is cut loose with an automatic grenade launcher, because not only is it auto fire, but you get the explosion rules and you get the fragmentation rules, and it's each locus, blah 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 blah. So I came up with a concept to simplify all of that, and we played to I did a blind test. I gave it the rules to a co-author of mine. who runs a game, and I like to do this because I don't want the rules interpreted by me. I want to know what someone who's not saying, "Oh, well, what would Doug do?" and inventing things on the fly. Anyway, so he ran this, and apparently they were able to use the automatic grenade launcher, and it was totally slick. Um, and so I'm very happy that with that result. And there are a few other
Did you
things
make
that we're
it
doing.
mathematically equivalent?
It was believably equivalent, yes.
Okay.
So basically, what I wound up doing is instead of saying you fire 6 or 10 Mark 9 from shells from the Mark 19 or whatever, and boom, 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 boom. So what I basically did was that there's going to be a central zone with overlapping, right, and all of those are treated as the center part of the explosion instead of just the one. So if you're in this zone, you get the full effect as if you got hit directly. And then fragments and concussion come out in a radius from there. Yeah, no, it works slicker than snot. I was very pleased with because usually you do something like this and you're like, this is the greatest idea. I have the most awesome mechanic. And then you test it at the table and it just sucks, right? It doesn't work like you thought, or people interpret it wrong, or your gloriously streamlined mechanic breaks down because you forgot something. But in this particular case, it sort of showed up as advertised.
I was impressed with, GURPS Traveler. I think this is where this pioneered, and later GURPS Spaceship, how they simplified the GURPS vehicle rules, which are notoriously detailed.
Oh, geez,
They simplified it into a series of modules and made something that's very easy to use.
And interestingly enough, that is exactly what I did with Delvers to Grow, my product that uses modular character generation for GURPS and for a convention. I don't do a lot of conventions, but I was running games at a convention, and I wanted pre-generated characters, and so I was in the hotel and I made 30 GURPS characters, and it took me 10 minutes each, and they were 150 point. Just boom, boom, boom. They were all different. They were all a little different, but they took me 10 minutes each. So, I mean, that's pretty good for GURPS, right? That's TFT OSE fast. But I wanted it to be that for Mission X, this new game that I'm writing as well. So it will also use a modular character building, a little chunkier. And the thing about the chunkiness, though, is, why are you going to do chunks? What's the whole point of point buy? Well, these things come in clusters anyway. Right? If you're going to be a gun shooter guy, you're going to want gun skill. You're going to want soldier skill. You're going to want this cluster of skills that comes together. And so you're going to wind up pretty close to that module anyway. And worst case,
if there's be a big brute of fire, you're going to have a certain strength,
whatever, right? So worst case, you're going to put the module down there, and you say, well, I'm going to tweak this one part of the module up one, and I'll move this one down one to compensate. Okay, fine, right? But then you're at a 90% in 5 minutes. You spend a few minutes tweaking, and then you're at the table. And even at any point in there, you have a playable, legit, effective character absent of newbie traps. So that's going to be the goal for Mission X, and I've done a few other things with how that works that'll hopefully make things a little quicker too. But all of this really gets down to the point, though, is that Mission X is. Let's see. I want to say that the rules, the playable rules for Mission X are shaping up to be between 150 and 200 pages at the moment, assuming that I do 8.5 by 11 and blah blah blah. Right. So for a full color book of 200 pages, that's $50,000 in development costs.
Oh, geez.
$250 a page.
But that's including the art in there, right?
That's all in. Not only is that all in, that's paying everybody reasonable market rates.
Dude,
like
what
the
about,
artists
what
get
about
what they
like
want.
stock art, Doug? I mean, just
Come
fucking
again?
hell, man. I mean, Jesus,
Stock art? No.
like stock art or something. I don't know.
No, and so when I did my Nordland bestiary, all the animals were Photoshop stock art, and I used a filter to remove the white background and make it look more like it was painted instead of photographed. So I absolutely did that, and that's the only reason that project made any money. But if you're going to do original art, and that's not, I mean, my art team is not Lexus, right? I mean, these guys do great work, and I pay them what they ask for. But it's not. I'm not paying Magic the Gathering. Well, I don't know what I mean, it's funny when I go to when I went to Gen Con, I'm like, well, how much for this piece of art? And they're like, thousands of dollars, and that's you can only use it for a year or whatever. But I don't think WotC pays them that. But that's what once they get established, they charge it to other people. But in any case,
does it matter that much? Other than the cover of your whatever you're making, I'm just me. I'm personally speaking, of course. It's just I don't care.
I know. There are lots of people who are like the art doesn't mean anything to me. I had an author come to me, and I had an author come to me. He's like, I don't really care about the art. And then I sent him the book that was fully illustrated. He's like, oh shit, this is so much better now that I can visualize the different things and whatever. He's like, I didn't care about art until I see my project arted. Right? He's like, now he's a believer. But yeah, I mean, so, and the $250 is about so what I like to do, and this gets back to the question of how do I do this? What I like to do is come up with the most probable worst case, right? I'm paying as if I were paying. The $250 is if I outsource the entire thing, right? And so if I'm going to pay 10 cents a word to an author, which I will, that's in there. If I'm going to pay 6 cents a word or 5 cents a word to an editor, even if I'm doing the editing, I include that in that cost. If I'm going to pay somebody else for layout, $500 to set up a template and then a certain number of dollars per page after that, then I include that as well. And then I say, well, on the average, I want a piece of art on every spread, unless I can't afford it. But on the average, I'd like something to break up the page. And I usually say it's about a third of a page of art somewhere to break up the text and do flow or whatever. And I work all of that into the average, and it comes out to be about $250 a page. Black and white is less because the art costs less, the printing costs less. But that's to answer Mr. Gunn's question, what that $175 to $250 a page gets you is a printable PDF. That's either the PDF that you spool out to print or the PDF that you spool out to send to backers. But it doesn't really include. There's some overhead cost in there that include like going through the entire damn thing and hyperlinking it. Because holy shit, I hate that job. God, I hate it. And then I even have a couple of InDesign scripts to help automate it, but there's only so much you can do. And eventually you go through and one by one.
Hitting you up for that, I'm going to need to hyperlink my how to make a fantasy sandbox.
No, and one of the most important things, and this is something that especially if you're outsourcing, if you're doing the writing yourself, you can remember it. But if you're not doing the writing yourself and you're outsourcing, it's super important to send the author a Word template, and you have to put in the styles. You can't just do like Control B for bold and Control I for. You need to highlight that word and say bold in Word. Use the styles. Because then when you import it into InDesign or Affinity as whatever program that you're using, it actually maps in correctly. I used to not do that. I didn't realize how important it was. And all of the formatting that was in these manuscripts would disappear when you imported it. And I have to do it all over again. So yeah, the styles, paragraph styles, character styles, super important for making that part of it easier.
Yeah, I envy your skill at color. I'm pretty happy with my black and white approach,
and it can look good. It looks very good. It looks very good. I am not. The only reason why I'm fussing about color is for a long time I feel like the GURPS community that I was a part of, we were small in number and we were getting books and they were black and white and printed on uncoated paper, and they weren't nice. right? You wanted to go play D&D not because you like the system, but because the books were better. And I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do full color. I'm just going to look as good as I can make it. And I'm going to make a book that I would have wanted to buy. And I still try and do that. I think in the OSE and TFT space, people expect black and white mostly. And so you give it to them, right? And that's great. But publishing, there's a lot that goes into it. But I didn't know it before I started doing it. Actually, if you really want to get deep into the weeds, move a couple pallets of books from Europe to Minneapolis. Holy frack, that is just a nightmare. And anyone you hired, I don't know. I've had some really bad experiences, but anyone that I contracted out to somebody as a freight forwarder to handle all this. And not only did they drop every single ball, they invented new balls and dropped those too.
That's always fun.
Oh my God. Like I was like, guys, the printing is done, right? I have 600 hard copy books sitting in Riga waiting for your guy to pick them up, and you have not started on the paperwork yet. They've been sitting there for a month waiting for you, and your guy still hasn't emailed me yet or whatever. That was not my best. That was a couple of years ago. That was not my best time. But yeah, it is. There are a lot of hats, and this is why. Is one of the reasons why the drive-through print on demand or Amazon print on demand is so appealing if you can navigate it, because you don't have to deal with the shipping. Especially Amazon POD, they print locally all over the world, right? So someone will buy something, buy one of your PODs, and it'll get printed in Riga and shipped to Riga, or it'll get printed in Australia and shipped to Australia. So you just don't have to worry about it, and you don't have to hold inventory.
Just curious,
there's a lot of benefit to it.
They're doing a lot of the GURPS book under Amazon POD, and
I know
you're not employed by SJ Game, but have you heard anything? How's it been working out for them?
Seemed to work out okay. I mean, this fantasy trip book that I have here, these softcover fantasy trip books, these are Amazon POD. Oh. Yeah, they're getting better. I mean, they're getting, but there's no question that my opinions of this were formed early on.
Right.
And so now I do what I do because I like the result, but I could probably return to it, given time.
So now, Doug, I got a question for you.
Yeah, sure, bring it.
Like the cover for Cedra and stuff like that. Because now these covers do front and back, right? The big, I can't, my VR won't show it. But these are major spreads. What do you ballpark? What are you paying for the art?
Depending on the artist and what they want, somewhere between $500 and $1,000.
Okay.
I had the guys who did my art for Dragon Heresy. He refused to charge as much as his work was worth, and so now he's not drawing anymore. Very sad. But because he did my cover for Dungeon Grappling as well. Michael Clark, amazing artist, but he was like, "Oh, I'll do it for this much money." I'm like, "Dude, man, no. Let me pay you what you're worth." And that's the thing. Here's one of the things. If I had to say there was one thing that I learned, and this is why I'm like backers. If there's one thing that I really learned at the consulting company, I will never save my way to success. Right? If I'm like, no, I'm going to find a really cheap artist. I'm going to save $500 instead of spending $1,000. Or I'm going to use lower quality paper and save myself a few pennies per whatever. Or I'm going to try and pay 5 cents a word instead of 10 cents a word. Fuck it, man. I mean, that's not the point. That's not the point. The point is if I can do 1,500 backers, it doesn't matter what I pay. I can pay them more. And everybody wins. Right? I am never going to save my way to success. I need to be good enough to get 1,000 people or 1,500 people coming to my thing and saying, "What do you got?" And if they don't want what I have, then hopefully I have 1,000 different people who come and say, "Oh, I'm the OSE market and I'm the GURPS market. And I don't have to keep hitting the same cash register." But I will never save my way to profitability. The only thing that I can do is grow. And if I can't grow, then I'll go back to engineering or something, and I'll, the corp. I'm quoting the corpo. I'm quoting McKinsey and Company. That's where I learned that. The corpos do know that. But if you have a product that's evergreen, if you're doing something over and over and over again, then you do need to keep the cost down, and then you can increase the profitability or make a product viable by controlling your costs. But that will not grow your company. That will just merely make that one particular piece sustainable. Right. So, but yeah, I see Mr. Gunn has a lot of experience in corporate America, as do I. But yeah, so that's where I am, and that's why I keep putting stuff out there, and I've got I've published 50 books now, I think, since I started.
Wow.
I've got like 7 or 10 in the the D&D-ish space. I've got 19 or 20 GURPSy books, another 19 or 20 TFT books. So that's not bad. I think I started in 2017 or 2018. So
are any of them the print stock is completely sold out on?
No, but that's because if I sell out of Scorpion Labyrinth, I'll order 50 more from Mixum. Okay. That's where the POD, right? So once I sell out of the Nordland Bestiary, my hardcover. Tripped over my sword. But once I sell out of this guy, I printed 600. I maybe have 90 left. They're gone. And that's that.
So maybe you should try putting that on POD just to see how it does.
That might be the only way that I can get that out there. But I still have 1,000 copies of Dragon Heresy. I'm not putting that on POD. Why don't you do POD Dragon Heresy? No.
And I understand that.
No. I got 1,000 books in a freaking warehouse in Tennessee. I actually think I need to bring a few cases of those to me, because I'm down to 10 copies of Dragon Heresy. 15 copies of Dragon Heresy in my house.
I think that Joe Block. I mean, I'm trying to scratch my brain for people who are comparable, like a one dude running his own goddamn show, doing his own thing, right? Is like you, Joe Block, maybe Jeff Talanian, right? And I think Joe Block does everything drive through POD, everything. And even if he brings stuff to cons or something like that, he prints it off there at cost and then just brings them over.
Even Kevin Crawford does drive through RPG. He has specific offset run Kickstarters when he feels it's warranted for a book. I believe Cities Without Numbers has it now an offset run Kickstarter.
Also, did World Without Numbers.
World Without Numbers, yeah.
And the second Kickstarter on that was to do another run for the offset. So, I don't think Kevin for the offset print runs, I think that is Kickstarter perfect. I don't think he does much of an overage at all, because he does a lot of his stuff print on demand through drive-through.
I want to ask Wizard Tower Games to rephrase the question. I don't think I understand what he's asking me. Maintain production.
Maintain printing. I guess keep stuff in print. I'm not 100% sure there. All right.
So I mean, I guess I could say if the thing is, if I run out of Bestiary books here, I'll need to print 500 minimum, right, to do it offset. And I'm not going to do a 200-page hardback without sewing the binding. And a 200-page book like this with a sewn binding done at print on demand, a Mixum or whatever, will sew binding. It's like $26 a book, cost, not sales. So you do something like this overseas, like in Latvia or something, it's $10 a book or $6 a book or whatever it is to print in quantity. But I need that quantity, right? I need to have a project that calls for that. What might wind up being more viable in that particular case if I run out is I do a Kickstarter for all of this book. I have another 100 pages of monsters in my Nightmare Fuel books, Serpents of Legend, Garden of Evil, and the Bugstiary. So I put all that content into the one book, and then I add like dinosaurs and more demons, and I add to it, right? So then it becomes a mega book. And because the GURPS community, for example, is larger than the 500 or 600 that's sold, right? Even the DFRPG and some of the pyramid stuff do between 1,600 and 3,000 things. So there are people who don't have this, right, at all. And if I came up and said, I'm going to do a 380-page mega volume with some new content, some old content, all integrated together, that was always my favorite Batgirl, all integrated together, that might be something where I could do a new printing, delight the customer with a massive book stop or whatever. Oh, you purchase your own equipment. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I can't fit that in my basement.
What about the garage? Come on.
My garage is full of my woodworking equipment. I had a I won't say it was an argument, but I had a discussion about that when we were considering my oldest daughter is within a couple of years of driving, and it came time for us to get my wife a new car. And we're like, well, what do we do with the old one? And, the initial discussion was around trade-in and whatever. And we're like, maybe we just keep it for her. And my wife Alina is like, well, yeah, we could clean out the third stall of the garage and park it there. I'm like, but that's all my woodworking equipment. No, that's where I go to have fun when my publishing sucks. like a sword or a shield or a scabbard.
Wow, I've learned how a Douglas Cole wine works. So
yeah, but no, that was no, I love it. Right? I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, I like writing, I like publishing, but I could get out there. This scabbard here. So you have the sword, obviously the sword, but I made this. Right? This is my first attempt at a scabbard. It's lined with wool, and I need to coat it with leather. But the first attempt I did to coat it with leather was not happy, so that didn't work.
Period techniques for that?
Come again?
Are you using period construction techniques? The peg?
This one, no, because mostly I wanted something that had a lining that would soak with oil to keep the blade from rusting. My next one will use a much thinner wood core done in a lamination method that'll hold the shape. So that one will be closer to period. But I do cheat. I mean, I'm not really in this for trying to duplicate the technology. I mean, the Vikings invented IKEA, right? So they'll use whatever is going to work.
As long as we're on a Batman kick, that's the best Batwoman of all time, I think. Judy. So you bought your own printing equipment? Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Don does his own printing. And he's out there in Battle Creek, I believe. So it's closer to you than he is to me.
So that's cool. But yeah, I actually get my interestingly enough, my very first time I did cards, I did them in China, makeplayingcards.com. And then I heard of a place within driving distance of me, the old Fantasy Flight cards manufacturer, and they're 1/3 the price.
Really?
China. Mm-hmm. And they don't give me any hassles about minimum order and or anything like that. So it's I'm very pleased with Artiforge, and they do really great work for me. The only thing you have to watch for is because I'm so small, every now and then they'll get a giant order in, and like that's what actually happened with Cedra. I'm like, oh yeah, because normally I'll throw it in and I'll throw in the order, and they'll be like, oh, we'll slot it in when we can, and we'll give it to you in a month, and then like the next week they're like, oh, we managed to get your cards in, they're done, come pick them up. So that's where I get to over deliver.
That's nice.
So,
Yeah, the card printing at. So I made these reference cards for Swords and Wizardry and for my Majestic Fantasy. Yeah. Everybody can mark it off now.
I know. It's like, where's the bingo cards?
Yep.
So these are reference cards for quick character generation.
Yeah.
Hold on.
And
Hold on, Rob. Show them off.
I'll show the Swords and Wizardry because that's more generally.
Don't show your sword. Jesus Christ. This is
I didn't say that. I said, never mind.
But yeah, so my idea was, if I can get them out of the packaging, was every player gets one of these generic reference spell lists,
Nice.
and then you say what class do you want to play, and they pick one, and then you hand them that card. So this one is for a druid, and on the back is the price list.
Right.
And,
nice.
And so they have everything in hand to completely make up a character within 20 minutes. And I did this for a con game. Now, the reason for showing this is the problem is that I got these printed at drive-through. Very nice, very sturdy, last a million years. But it's totally not cost effective. I have to tell people, I have a note in thing. Now, I offer the print version. I will make the same amount of money whether it's PDF or print, so don't feel bad. But if you have a printer at home with cardstock, buy the PDF, print them at home. You can make as many as you want. It'll cost way less.
Right.
So that was the sad thing.
Don at Wizard Tower says yes, he can do poster-like maps.
Very cool.
Oh boy, maybe there's a piece of card in there. Oh, and here's the class summary that I was talking about. So class on the front, races on the back. And I did the same thing for my Majestic Fantasy RPG as well.
Yep.
So I actually had one or two people buy the cards, the physical cards, but most of my sales for this is up to silver now, I think, or maybe Electrum, but most of the people buy the PDFs.
Yeah, one of the things that I ran into a little bit, and this was both a blessing and a curse. When I first started to do cards, I said, "Oh, I'll do cards," and Steve Jackson Games said, "Do you want to make them look like the same as the Decks of Destiny cards?" And I'm like, "Sure." And they're like, "Okay." And then they sent me the files, so I'm literally using the same card files for TFT that they do.
That's nice.
So they blend perfectly with all the rest of the stuff. But it also meant that I had to purchase a custom die because they use 3.5 by 5 inch cards. Not a big deal. Well, I mean, it was a big deal at the time. It was $1,500. It's handy though, because once you have it, and you can keep using it and stuff.
Right.
And it's a nice size, the 3.5 by 5, and it let's just say that it encourages the right amount of brevity, because there's only so much you can put on a 3.5 by 5 card.
That's slightly larger than index card size, right? 3 by.
Yep.
Yeah, I printed off. I have references for monsters and NPCs that I print on index card, and you're right. It is the right amount of brevity for that kind of thing. So
there are some monsters that require 2 cards, but
one fallout of the Judges Guild fiasco was I had Bob Bledsaw Jr. sold on the idea of reprinting the dungeon tap cards, and I had 2/3 of these done and laid out, but it is not going to be. I thought this was a neat idea.
That is a good idea, right?
Also shows.
So I'm going to change the subject to complain a little bit.
Yeah.
So a couple of days ago, I placed a Facebook ad for Isle of Cedra, and to date, I think I have more spam emails from people telling me that my site is going to get canceled, and if I only click this link, I can appeal it. I must have gotten 100 of these in 2 days, and they're all the same.
Really?
Oh my God, they're all the same. The names are different. The link is never to facebook.com. It's always like io.this or free for Facebook. It's never the right link. And if you hold, even if it is facebook.com, you hold over and the actual link is different.
Right.
I think I have more spam Facebook. And first of all, if Facebook is going to yell at me, they're not going to do it through Facebook Messenger. Ever. And I will Wizard Tower. I will answer that question directly in a minute. But I just you can't report them. You can't block them. They're always coming from somewhere different. But I seriously, I get one of these every 10 minutes.
Oh jeez.
It's just so irritating because it always has that thrill of fear that this is a real thing. Because I can't remember if it was Twitter or Facebook, but I got blocked or banned or something, and then I was like, no, not me. And then they reinstated me very quickly once for real, but it was not Facebook Messenger, right? It was I got an email, and that was another thing. Yeah, so Facebook ads are an interesting thing. I'll usually throw $100 at it, and so if I get 2 or 3 people clicking from the link, it's a return. I believe that Alex and a couple other big MCDM very clearly has done multi-$1,000 ad campaigns, and from what I know, they work. But it takes money to make money. You really need to throw. They're talking about I spent $3,000 or $5,000 on advertising, and I got 2,000 or 5,000 backers because of it. And so what they'll do is they'll say, I spent $1 per successful pledge. So when you talk about it that way, it's pretty good return on investment. I just feel like maybe this is just me being, toxic Doug or something, but I just feel like my work really ought to be the advertisement. Like if I can't, but it's about reach, right? And you've seen my stuff, but yeah, right. But yeah, I just feel like it's on me to make my material appealing enough and wide ranging enough to bring the customers in. But I'll tell you what, the reason why people advertise is it's effective.
No.
So with Facebook, on my Facebook ads, it is greater than 1. So if I drop $100 on a Facebook ad, I know that I'll get 3 or 4 or 5 pledges at least, right? Sometimes it's more.
Right.
I used to get the mass mailing detectors have gotten really, really good at filing things that sometimes I think people care about into to trash cans, the spam bucket. Because I used to send out like a MailChimp or I have about a mailing list of about 4,000 people. And 1,000 of those are game retailers. And that used to be really effective. I'd send out one of these mailings and I'd have 100 or 200 pledges, like boom. Like it's like, oh yeah, this is cool, boom. But I think people are so inundated with Kickstarters, and the mail filters are so good now that people aren't seeing my stuff. They're tired of me, which is entirely possible. They want to do the new hotness, but
start a Substack group, Doug. That's the hottest thing now. It's like a blog, but
okay. I have a blog.
I know you have a blog, but you don't have
a blog. I don't want 2 blogs.
But you don't have a Substack.
I don't have a Substack. Is this? I'll look into it, but at some point, and of course, obviously things. It's like saying, I'm still on MySpace because I've always been. I'm not. But it's like just to make that clear, I'm not.
You don't have either.
but no, I and that was the thing. I got a great place to put stuff up is like, sometimes Reddit, but I they really 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 want you to be like a constantly interacting on there, or else I got banned from r/RPG because they're like, oh, you're not contributing enough to the Reddit discussion to be worthy of posting promo. And I respect that, right? That's their rule, and that's what actions have consequences. But I was like, I'm trying to contribute by making shit that people want.
No, that's not how
Well,
Reddit works.
I had a run with the
how it
RPG
works.
monitors, and I said, you're blah blah blah. It's like, dude, not only it was free what I posted, it's
Dude.
open content, so it's free in the other sense of the word for people to use. So it's a benefit to everybody on that Reddit that I mean, not everybody's gonna like it, but it's not
Right. It's
me anyway.
See now, Rob, if you were part of their in crowd, you could have posted like cat pictures and they'd be fine. It's appropriate. But if you are not part of the insular crowd, it's there. It's the OSR Reddit. If you're not part of the active or part, you can't. Any part of your conversation is going to get voted down, or anything that you put up is not going to be well received or even left up because you're not part of that in crowd. I can't do Reddit. The few times I've tried, I've gotten so frustrated with it. I'm like, I can't do it.
I don't
right,
know.
so-
They seem to let my stuff out after I had that chat. They seem to leave my stuff up more. I don't know why, but
All right, so here's what can I say? I had 51 so far. I've had 51 link clicks from my Facebook ad. I've spent $24 of that, and that's not it. And so far, it looks like now I made a mistake and I didn't tag the link in the Facebook post.
Uh-huh.
So it could have so I have one traceable Facebook pledge of $35. So thus far, my return on investment is about 150% because I've spent $25 to get $35.
Okay.
140%. So, but this, let's see, what best way to say this? This is not my best start.
Right.
This is a very slow motion Kickstarter launch for me, and this is after a year of bad launches.
Right.
So this was not something that makes me want to dance on top of a Steam grate. So this is I'm not surprised, I guess, that everything is a little bit slow because if things were working, everything would be up. And I don't need this project. I mean, if I had, I mean, obviously I want it to have 1 million backers and do $1 zillion and all that stuff. But honestly, is all I really need out of this project is 400 or 500 people would make my 2024 really good. It doesn't have to be a ton. I just need enough money that I can pay. Like David Pulver wants to write at least 3 books for me in 2024, and I know what they are. It's going to be a companion to Cedra, another solo, and an adventure that I already have. I just haven't paid for it yet, but he's already sent it to me. We just, I'll pay him for that, and we'll get started on that. And it could be the launch in December with holiday and all that stuff, but the whole year has sucked. So I don't know if it's just particularly bad because it's December or it's just a carry on of suckage or some people might have said, oh look, didn't you just do this? Why are you kickstarting it twice? But they're actually different products. But anyway, if I could get 400 or 500 people on this one because of the nature of it, it would double my working capital and give me 6 months of life support
Hmm.
for five. If I got 500 backers, I could simultaneously onboard a new author, work with David, and have projects substantially complete by the time they go to Kickstarter. So that's just the difference, right? If I'm a little low on working capital, there's less that I can do before I launch a Kickstarter. And that has a double whammy, right? Not only does it take longer to get to backers, so my number of cycles per year is lower, but the backers detect an unfinished product and they're nervous. Is he going to be able to finish this? Now, in my case, I've delivered 50 books in 20 projects, so the answer is yes. They've all been, I think one of them was late because the quality that came into me wasn't good enough and I had to spend months rewriting it. But beyond that, right? I mean, I feel like I'm a relatively low risk, my project management and my managerial skills and my learning of supply chain and logistics and getting this stuff done is more than if I can manage a $6 million development of a diamond like carbon machine, I can make a book. At least I'm not having to invent new physics to do the book. But the coming to the table with here's a screenshot of what the table of contents will look like. Here's a screenshot of some of the art and some of the content. Here's the index, right? If you can show somebody the index and the table of contents and they're meaningful, and then a couple of pretty pictures, they know what they're getting, and they tend to be enthusiastic about it. And then you're doing it to say, hey, do we get more art? Do we expand the book? That was there's only so much of that you want to do, though. I'm very leery of stretch goals in many cases. There are some that I like, but a lot of times stretch goals are just a fantastic way to delay the point where you can do useful work. It depends what they are, but once I like it to do it so that once I fund, I'm off. Like at that point I'll spend the money because I know I'm getting I'll start cutting checks for art and stuff because I know I funded. I know I'm going to do this, and I don't set my funding goal at 500 and I really need 5,000. Right? I do the budgeting and I say like this one, I think I need $8,000 to really do what I need to do, or else it's not worth doing because of the time that it's going to take to do it. Right. So that's where the funding goal came from. It was really, if I get this, it'll get me enough time and working thing to do what I need to do with it. And if I exceed that, then yay team. On the prior project, the actual development of Cedra, the goal was quite a bit higher. I think my old bestiary had a goal $30,000 or something, but that was real. That wasn't a pretend $30,000. That was I needed $30,000 to do the thing.
Oh, don't fool us. You were creating the new spell illusionary funding.
What was that?
Never mind. It was a bad joke.
I blew myself up.
I wrote a one, second one of the night.
But message unavailable. Wow, this spammer can't even get their thing to show through. But yeah, right. So while we've been talking for 2 hours and well, sort of 2 hours, and about 2 hours, I've had to delete 3 or 4 the same message effectively.
Oh, that would drive me nuts.
Yeah, I've seen a new type of spam this year that I looked in my spam folder, and there's all these spams about all these. Please click here. You have this invoice that you must pay that will be charged on.
Right. So let's see if I can find the damn thing. No, not their business. Let me. Can I show people what this looks like? Can I show my screen?
Yeah, share screen. I'll pull up.
No, share screen. Don't show these tips. Share screen. I want to see.
You can pick a window or a screen.
This? Nope. Yeah, I know. I'm working on it. Window. There we go. Share. Can you blow this up? I want everyone to see this. Okay, so this
Hold on,
is the.
Let me put us to the side. So
Yeah, there we go. There we go. There we go. So this is I've gotten about 100 of these, and it's all the same. There's a name that changes every time. Your Facebook page is expected to be permanently removed due to the post. Due to the post. If I were Facebook, I'd want somebody to know exactly what post violated terms and conditions. Violating our trademark rights. Careful consideration, compliance with our IP. Look at that. HTTPS linkr.bio ID blah blah blah. And they got the logo counterfeited and everything. Best regards, support group. Right?
thank you, Winford.
Right? So first of all, Winfred Zwick is absolutely going to be an NPC somewhere.
I was gonna say it's a perfect NPC name.
Right? So Wizard Tower, this is coming through Facebook Messenger. So this is internal to Facebook. Right. So I think Facebook has to take care of this. I can stop sharing. Right. But I want people to see this because I was watching a bowyer that I know he does work around here. You know, he hand carves traditional longbows. And he's like, he shows something and he's like, oh man, now I got to change all my passwords. It looks like I've been hacked, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't think so, dude. I think this is totally fake and you can just shit can it. So yeah, if so I did send a note to Facebook and said, please make this stop. But it's not really coming to me. It's coming to me through Facebook Messenger. Almost certainly it's because of the ad. It didn't start happening until I boosted my post.
Right.
And so
Now,
they're
how are
detecting
they
the boost.
messaging you? Don't you have to permit them to message you?
Apparently not. It's a public post.
It's
my business. It's my business page, and you don't shut that down. You need to accept. Yeah, you need to. Right, if someone wants to contact you, you have to let them.
Right.
So that's the other thing is, and I did. Then there's also the hey, pay me and I'll get you more backers on Kickstarter spam,
Right.
and that's always my favorite because those always have the same pattern. Join December 2023, backed 0 projects, delete. And so I actually sent a note to Kickstarter. I'm like, look, I am reporting these as spam every single time. But I know that some companies get mad of abusing the spam function, and I heard back right away from Kickstarter like absolutely report to spam, absolutely, because that's the only way that we can know about it, and we're not going to ding you for reporting. So that was good. But yeah, I just if you're a legit marketing guy, like what is it? I think Egg Embry. And what's another guy? There are a couple legit people with some reach and stuff that it's not my thing. I kind of have the carry your own water mentality, which is probably stupid. But because obviously I need some help. I'm terrible at marketing, right? I got 88 backers on a set of really quite nice product here, 89 backers. But there are some legitimate people out there who can help promote your stuff, and I'm sure that MCDM and Kevin Crawford doesn't need the help, but I'm sure that he could hire good help if he wanted it to. But yeah, so there's some legitimate things out there, but backed 0 projects and joined this month, you're not one of them.
Right.
Oh, certainly not. Yeah, no. Sadie, you want screen time? You gonna put your head up there so people can see you?
Yeah, meow.
Come on. Oh yeah, there we go. There's a bit of your head.
There's the brain cell.
All right.
The one brain cell.
There you go. It's just like, Daddy, you've been talking to these people too long. What about me? And now you're drooling. Ugh. I get the only cat that drools when she gets excited. She doesn't really purr. She just drools. It's worse than dog drool. I'm sorry. Dog drool at least it's well.
Yeah.
I think that we've Thanks to Joe, but this is like this could be almost two and a half hours of
Right.
fucking us
Part
up.
2.
Hey, it
Yeah.
was only a 3-minute fuck up, man.
Yeah, but then I had to like.
And I paid you back with Batgirl and Catwoman, all right? So you're all benefited from this.
Oh my god! All right, so
And we still have 14 people watching.
Yeah,
we
impressive.
had
Yeah,
like
not
30,
bad, not bad.
we had 35.
Hey, and I will say that whether I mean maybe it's as a result of this, but I'm starting to close in on $6,000, which is
All right.
most
Very
of the
good.
way there. I don't want to inundate people with notes, but I'll probably send out another no. I've got some stuff planning. I think, and Gavin's going to mention me in his newsletter sometime in the next week or so. Hopefully
There
it
you go,
won't
that's
drop off the.
good.
Hopefully it won't drop off the bottom like the.
Steve Jackson.
No, not Steve. See, they're gonna. The new CEO Meredith Placco comes from a marketing background, and so she is exceptionally aware of rising tide phenomena. So I feel like she understands that if you have a successful ecosystem, you're going to have a successful main product. I feel.
Oh, you
So-
mean they're going to
so-
actually have a real third-party programmer? Or
No,
publishing
no,
program?
no, Rob, you don't even go there. You're never going to win that.
All right, all
Sorry.
right. I'll shut up. I have accepted my defeat in that department.
No, it's just no. But with their licensing, like I believe that my experience recently with this is a project that I would really like to succeed. I know it's not TFT or GURPS, but if this one goes well, it will enable me to do more TFT and GURPS because I can pay for the next set of TFT stuff or whatever. And she puts me right in contact with her marketing people, and we can do some stuff and blah blah blah, this that and the other thing, and it's a very proactive experience.
That's
Right?
cool.
And so I'm very that's very pleased with that particular interaction. And so could be something there, and actually I'm also there. Have you guys? We didn't talk about this, but we probably should. Steve
Yeah.
Jackson Games is running a Dungeon Fantasy role-playing game bundle of holding.
Oh,
You can
you
get
know-
it's huge. I mean, it's like getting
It's like-
all the PDFs for like 75% off.
come to think of it,
If you've ever been interested in Dungeon Fantasy role-playing games,
right?
this is the time to get in.
Yeah,
Like, you'll get-
the starter set is $18. It gives you the rules, the fantasy companion, the GM screen, and the dungeon planner.
And,
Yeah.
folks, it's complete. You don't have to buy any other GURPS book.
Nope.
That's right. However, from today through January 5th, all of Gaming Ballistics Dungeon Fantasy role-playing game PDFs, all 19 or 20 of them, are also 50% off at my store. That is an automatic discount.
And I recommend Delvers to Go because it's a more sane way of playing Dungeon Fantasy.
That is a product that I think people, the people who are left in the GURPS ecosystem are mostly do-it-yourselfers, and so they don't see the utility of that because they're like, I know all the rules, I don't need this. But new people, I had a guy in my Patreon subscriber who runs a walk-up game at his local game store with Dungeon Fantasy role-playing game. Walk in the store, never role-played before, never played GURPS before, and they walk out with box sets because the character generation is so fast that they can do it in 20 minutes in the store. They're playing. They're like, oh my goodness, this is a tactical role-playing game, and it's it's honed. I mean, the DFRPG is all the depth in or not as you like that you can bring to the table. Anyway, so it's cool, but because I also sell physical stuff, the bundle of holding does not. That's all PDF. But I also have marked down all of my Dungeon Fantasy role-playing game physical product by 25% as well. So I am running a about a month. I started mine 2 days after theirs, and I'm ending mine 2 days after theirs. So hopefully some of these some people will come into the Dungeon Fantasy role playing game space and see what I have to offer and buy
That's
it.
the thing. That's the thing about GURPS, folks. It's very well designed.
Oh yeah.
It may have some presentation issues that Doug addressed in his Delvers to Go, but once you get it, once you're able to understand it and play it, for that level of detail, it plays very well.
All right, and they're only like 15. I'm gonna share. I want to share. Let me give me a minute here. I want to. Yeah. Oh, it just came.
I
come
gotta
back
say,
there.
I got to drop, guys. I got a real early morning tomorrow. But thank you, Doug. It was good to see you here tonight. All right.
Oh, thanks, Joe.
I'll talk to you all
God bless
later.
you, Joe.
Yeah,
Take
see
care,
you, Joe.
everybody. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Be good, Joe. So yeah, I got the link up. So folks, if you're following along at home, and you should be, I'll probably post about this tomorrow on the blog side, and then go through it, of course, for things that I am missing from my collection because I need stuff. Because I do. I was posting about it the other day when I was posting about the bundle of holding. This is the fantasy RPG that I own and backed on Kickstarter and have never played. And it's the one that I really want to play, not run. I want to play it.
Play, yeah. So if you could throw my, the box set is a lot of value. There's a lot of good stuff in there. Hey, throw up my, I'm sharing my screen. Throw my screen up there, I think. Yeah. This is probably the first time that anybody's really seen this. This is all that's required for the Mission X role-playing game.
Really?
Yeah. This is the character. This is. I mean, this is not graphically good,
right?
But you got your traits. The disadvantages are going to be packages like descriptions that contain some bits, but it's going to be very plain texty. And then like athletics +3. If you want to do a back handspring or run or whatever, you'll maybe roll. Let's say you're running and you have athletics +3. You roll health +3, so you're rolling against a 16. If you're going to shoot somebody,
how do you know the real health? Don't you shoot?
Because you look at the rules and the game master will say if you're doing something that involves physical exertion, you'll float it to health. If you're trying to shoot a basket, that's dex. And you'll do +3 plus dex.
Multiple attributes could apply to these skills.
Oh, absolutely. But that's true of GURPS today, right? Like stealth is frequent. I think piloting is IQ based on the book, but most piloting roles are dex based. If you're reefing your F-16 into a bank turn, you roll dex. If you're resisting G's, you roll health. Right? If you're trying to resist G forces, that's health. And why those guys look like and lift weights the way that they do.
So are they allowing you to rework the skill list? Because I see soldiering, I don't recognize soldiering, and you have survival and navigation as one skill.
I do, and I did. I am. So technically, I haven't reworked the skill system so much as the first thing that you're allowed to purchase is a 5-point talent, which includes these things, and the point value of it is such that you're getting. So it's a combination of talent and skill clusters. Because let's face it, you don't need filch, sleight of hand, and pickpocket. Those are 3 skills with very subtly different things that you don't need all 3. I'm going to have, you can see it, I have unarmed combat, which is a combination of unarmed grappling and unarmed striking. So 6 skills that would be part of GURPS go into unarmed combat because this game is about shooting people in the face. And so you don't really need shooting aliens in the face specifically. So you don't really need 426 unarmed combat stuff.
Technique.
You just, right? Because the only reason you're going to engage in unarmed combat is to get your way to a gun. Right? And so, yeah, so this is, so I will have taken, I'll eliminate all the things that like spell casting because it's not that kind of game. I'm combining some things into and this is not these are not permanent, right? These are kind of some placeholders that we put in there, but a lot of them will stay. So physician is first aid, diagnosis, the physician skill, bunch of stuff like that. But I think we're cut the skill list down to about 50 instead of
Good for
300
you.
and something.
I mean, that's
So, right?
That's the big difference. That, and sorry if I'm speaking
No.
for you, Tim, but that's the big difference between Tim and I over the years trying to get people to play GURPS. It was so much easier with this box set,
Right.
than it was
What?
with third, and it just became almost impossible with 4E
Right.
because everything, you know, it was obvious. It was more obvious to see what you need with this set.
Right.
Than it
And
is
what Delvers to Grow did was it took all of, let me grab one of the car here's my core book, right? So what Delvers to Grow did, beautiful art by Ksenia Kozhevnikova. Really, every time I work with her, I'm just thrilled. I haven't been able to get a hold of her recently, but hopefully she's busy and happy. And I know she got married, so hopefully she continues to be successful. And but she's a brilliant artist. But one of the joys of Delvers to Grow is instead of having to go through a 300 bit of skill, you're like, I'm going to take the Finesse Fighter module, which gives you a trademark move, Weapon Master, and 4 points in your weapon skill, or Unarmed Focus. No, that's not good. Where's something that's more complicated? Here we go. Punter, Axe Kick, Front Kick, Roundhouse Kick, Crescent Kick, Boot to the Head. I kick you. You've mastered them all. This pairs well with Unarmed Focus, and the damage bonus from 7 Secret Kicks. It's Mantis Strike, 7 Secret Kicks, trademark moves, and 8 points in Karate. Boom, 25 points. You get those things, and they're optimized for you. And what Mission X is going to do is hopefully reduce the necessity to buy system mastery from someone who knows it, and make things a little bit less complicated. Not complicated is the wrong word. It will reduce the amount of front loading because it's intricate and it's got a high level of resolution. But once you have your character sheet, you can just play the fucking game. Getting to the table can take, some people can get right there, right? If you've known the system and played it for a long time, then you can get right there. But some people, it's not uncommon to say, "Oh, I need a week to make a character," and that's just inexcusable, right? I mean, or I need to sit down with the game master, and the game master has to sit down with every individual person, right? And we some of us are old and stuff, and we have lives, and we don't want to be spending, I mean. So it's one of those things where you really want someone to be able to sit down and be able to make a character in anywhere between 5 and 30 minutes and not have to say, oh, what do you mean that, extra attack is a terrible thing because I only use the one weapon, right? Or whatever, right? You don't want to have to deal with that.
Well, I don't know if you remember playing with Josh back in the 5E, but his favorite phrase back when I ran GURPS for him was, "Rob, I really enjoy playing with you. I really enjoy GURPS, but I wouldn't be playing if you weren't running the game."
Right. Right.
And you're trying to avoid that with Mission X.
Yeah, I really, and then one of the fun things, I think it's fun. So I wrote an article it's called Conditional Injury, because one of the neat things about GURPS that I realized, and this is not a revelation that nobody else had but me, I think. One of the things about GURPS is it uses hit points. It doesn't need hit points. And so I wrote an article. It was a bit of a thought experiment. Said, what happens if you don't compare damage to the hit point total, but don't reduce hit points? You just have a wound of some sort. If you remember West End Games' Star Wars D6 system, it was just like that. Roll damage, compare it to some kind of score, and you have a wound, a severe wound, or minor wound, or lethal wound, or whatever. So I wrote that article and played that in some games, and some other people played it in games, and we made some improvements. And then I made a decision during the development that that's what I'm going to do. And so like a pistol, like 9mm pistol in regular GURPS is like 2D plus 2 damage, right? Well, now it's 7B. B stands for basic wound potential. But what it means is if you get shot, if a robustness 0, size modifier 0, armor 0 person gets shot in the torso with a 7B pistol, they take a severity 7 wound. Done. Now there's also a damage variability roll 3D, and that severity can go up or down by a couple categories. But so you still get to roll for damage. But one of the interesting things about it that is that because the scale matches the 7B, 9B versus 7B is twice as much damage. So it follows the typical GURP scaling, but what it means is that you use the same damage scale for a pixie. They might just do -3B, which is a non-wound for a regular human, but pixie versus pixie, size, -3 wound with a -6 pixie is +3. So that's a severity 3 wound. And so it automatically scales from kaiju to tardigrade if you need to.
Oh, okay.
Right? So it's got the scaling built in because it's logarithms in the background. I didn't say that, I swear. But the math works, and we do all the simulation and stuff.
Scaling is always a big bugaboo with the GURPS community. That's what led to fudge and then fake.
Right. But the thing is that the math is hidden, and all of the stuff, if you right now, if you roll 3 dice of damage and you get a 10, well, it's a pistol, but it's piercing plus, so you multiply by 1.5, and then you subtract DR, and then it's hit the vitals, and so you're multiplying that by 3. Well, what that becomes in Mission X is a bunch of plus or minus ones, so you're not taking 15 and multiplying it by 1.5 and then subtracting this and multiplying that by 2. You're saying the wound is a 9. The armor was the wound was a 9. The armor was an 8, and so because of how that works, Steambub, you're right. But the wound is a 9. The armor is an 8, and so the severity drops by 3. And there's a reason for that, but don't worry about it. So the wound is a 9, it hits 8 armor, so it becomes a 6. And then if it's PI plus, if it's like a 45 ACP, which normally you'd have to multiply that by 1.5, every step is times 1.5. So 6 becomes a 7. Or if you hit the vitals, 6 goes back to 9. Because it's super easy math at the table. And it's actually a little bit more realistic when it comes to penetrations and stuff, because bullet penetrations, because of the way that energetic overmatch actually works. But you don't have to deal with it, you just have to trust me. But yeah, it's been super fast, and I'm really excited to hopefully get to the point where I can launch this one, because it's going to be a tactical fighting game, to borrow the phrase that keeps coming up, but it's going to be in a genre that GURPS is frankly unmatched, which is the modern sci-fi hardcore stuff. But by streamlining it so that it's both fast to the table and at the table, I really think that this Powered by GURPS release will really show the power of the game in a way that does a lot for both the game master and the gamer.
Cool.
Yeah. So if I can make it to June of 2024 or whatever, that's what you have to look forward to. And we're play testing this real time too, right? As I make rules improvements, the rules get implemented on I think the guy who wrote Serpents of Legend is running 4 different groups at the same time by post.
Damn.
So every time that there's a significant rules update, I publish a no. It's a PDF with layout, but there's no graphics, and it's not really the orphans everywhere and stuff like that.
Right.
But we publish the new rules and we use them and test them and this worked and this didn't work and this guy thinks that this is a nerf and what about this and what about that and how could we make this faster? A lot of that is do we need to roll here? Can we eliminate a roll by doing it a different way? Do we need a roll here because otherwise it's too hat? How can we had one thing, suppression fire, right? You stick your head up, you get shot. We had a thing going and it was one of those, I was like, well, I think this might be a little overpowered. And then like one of the Game Master's players is a kind of a bit of a power gamer. He's like, no, this is fine because you can always choose to not stick your face up into the machine gun fire. Right? So it's super powerful. If you do it, you're likely to get hit, but you can choose to not do it. Oh, there's bullets streaming over my head. I'm not going to stick up. Because basically what it is, suppressive fire, you mark a line of fire on the map, and if you enter it or are in it, you get attacked. So somebody shoots on their turn, and then you try and cross the field, but you walk through the bullets, and you get attacked as you enter the zone. But you can choose to not do that. You can keep your head down. You can avoid the fire stream. Or seek cover, right? Crawl behind cover. And so because it's effective, if you get hit, you're probably out of the game because of the way that armor and bullets really work. It's one of those things where you actually get the emergent behavior looking a lot like what it looks like on the battlefield. A lot of people hiding behind really solid stuff or popping up and then dropping back down, a pop-up attack. And so you don't have the thing where you have a guy with an M60 belt and he's in the middle of a giant battlefield going and he's not worried about it because he has the hit points to soak all the damage. Right. So it's really very interesting on how a lot of this simplification actually this right. So what I'm about to do is articulate the old school essentials, so to speak, the essential old school rule: less is more. Less is more. If you have the right boundaries and the right conditions, you don't need that many rules to have a believable, engaging experience that does not break suspension of disbelief.
Oh, and also you're refining it through actual play tests.
That is correct.
For actual play. And sounds like you have a very tight cycle with a multitude of people with different perspectives.
Yeah.
And that's the trick. That's why I think D&D lasted as long as it did. I mean, even though it got altered through the edition, but the basic core of it still with us because between Gygax and Aronson, it got playtested the hell and back for a year and a half before it was published. And, when you do that, the game assumes a quality that otherwise a completely designed game with one or two playtests doesn't have.
Right. Yeah. No, and this is going to be, and again, the Steve Jackson Games was quite good to me in what I'm allowed to pull from. It's very extensive, so I have a lot of options of what I can pull through that has been tested and played, and then I can say, okay, less. How can I get this? And so there's going to be a lot that you can do with the Mission X engine, and I have my eye on things like Age of Sail, pirates, pistols. Why not, right?
Now, do you have any supernatural or fantastic elements in this initial release?
No, but it's my favorite genre. I love the monster hunting genre. Guns versus monsters is like my favorite thing. Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Supernatural and that kind of show. I mean, that was my jam. The inspiration, the essential core of the experience that I want to provide with the first Mission X is the more shooty, militant bits of Stargate SG-1.
I know what you mean.
Right. So the more it's more conflict oriented, and it's I love the XCOM 2, right? The tactical shooter, and I really liked Old Man's War,
Oh yeah.
Right, a great book. But the whole premise there is that the universe is damn. I mean, he subvert. Of course, he subverts the premise later, but the initial premise of that book is this is a hostile universe, and it's up to humans or to take care of themselves, and it's a violent place out there. And so I wanted to capture that feel for the initial release, but unlike, and I know why it was done, and I agree with the reasons, but I am definitely not cutting out the investigation side of the rules. And there's a ton of stuff in like the Monster Hunters books, the GURPS Monster Hunters, that has to do with investigations and puzzles and finding the technology in this case, right? XCOM is all about the tech tree, right? Leveling up your stuff. So I want to be able to try and capture that experience. But yeah, no, I absolutely believe that whether it's me or somebody else will come around with something supernatural. Hell, is all you're really going to need to do is start with my bestiary and stick him in, right? And throw some things on there so that it's not like raw vampire, raw dead vampire, right? I mean, because that's the problem with monsters is that even the Kraken withers under the fire of an M1A2 tank cannon. There's nothing about the M1 Abrams that isn't scary.
Well, breaking away from gaming a little bit, you might enjoy the new Apple series Monarch, the Godzilla one.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, Monarch is an organization of monster hunters, basically.
I like it.
And that's what the series is about.
Cool. All right. I may need to actually go. My wife is flying in from a business trip, and I need to go pick her up. Thank you so much for having. Thank you. Oh, Angry Kitty.
Yes. Come on. She's like, you've been on.
Is she trying to jump up, or is she fighting? Is she biting you?
She's whacking me. She's like, I'm long enough, and now she's nipping the back of my arm.
Okay. So, yeah. Anyway, thanks for having me on and letting me blather, and
definitely.
I'd love to come back anytime.
You're always welcome.
Yep.
Folks, as always, thank you to Doug. Thank you to Joe for fucking up the stream in the beginning. Quality work, Joe. Quality work. Thanks to Rob. Thanks to Tim. As usual, be safe, be well. God bless. Roll those dice, roll them well. I'll be back again tomorrow with Rach, 8 p.m. Gamers Health. Got some updates, and we'll have a good topic. We'll figure it out. And other than that, catch you all later.